Let's rock and roll. I call the February 8th, 2023 Bremerton City Council study session to order. The study session is open for the public to attend in person or view remotely, but there will be no opportunities for input. The content of these items is subject to change and no action is anticipated. Any of the items approved for action by the council tonight will be placed on the February 15th, 2023 City Council meeting agenda or is otherwise determined. A recording of this meeting today will be available online within a few days following the meeting. All right, so our first item is item A1, informal briefing and preparation for the AWC City Action Days Conference to be held with legislators in Olympia on February 15th and 16th, 2023. And I'd like to welcome City Lobbyist Bryan McConaughy of BMcConsulting to provide an informal briefing. And we'll see if we got Bryan connected on Zoom.
I think we're connected.
Perfect. Hey, Bryan, welcome.
All right. President, council members, Bryan McConaughy, thank you for allowing me to join you virtually during the session. Things get a little chaotic and it's a little challenging to do things in person. So I appreciate the flexibility. So President Coughlin, how would you like me to start?
If you just want to brief us on whatever you had in mind in terms of what's going on at the current session, anything you think we should be aware of, and if you have any request for input from us, and after you brief, then I can open up the council members for any questions.
Perfect. That works great. I'm excited to have you folks come down next week to the AWC Action Days in Olympia. I think I'm going to have you running. We've got meeting after meeting after meeting, so you'll get to see how kind of chaotic life is for a lobbyist for a day. So wear good shoes that will allow you to run on marble floors. That's my best advice I can give you. So, but what you're participating in and what's going on down in Olympia, it's great to have you come down and voice the city's concerns, areas of interest, those type of things with the legislators directly. It will be very brief. Each meeting will last about 15 minutes if we're lucky, because half the time they start us late and end us early. So it's really just an opportunity to just go in, say a few quick words, introduce ourselves, and let them know what's important to us. Do you have a question?
Yeah, Councilman, go ahead, Jennifer.
Councilmember Jennifer.
First name study session, Jennifer.
Now we're good. Hello, Mr. McConaughy. Okay,
yeah.
so do you have any particular HBs or SBs that we should be advocating for that are relevant to Bremerton?
Well, and so what I sent to you was, and by the way, major kudos to Lori Smith. And I hope you all recognize the work that she puts in on behalf of the council. She's very easy for me to work with and a nice partner. So thank you, Lori. Let me just give you a quick shout out as you and our interactions are primarily via email most of the time. I had sent to Lori earlier this afternoon a link to bills of interest that AWC and the city of Bremerton are actively watching and engaged in. And so what I would recommend is that you take a moment to review that list. It basically shows you where AWC stands on a wide variety of pieces of legislation. We're at a point right now where we are, still about a week and a half away from our first cutoff. And that is when the number of bills that are introduced daily starts to slow down. So I'm not answering your question. I'll get to that in a second. But we're bombarded right now with over 1,600 bills have been introduced just in the 3.5-4 weeks that we've been in session. It's a large number. A lot of these in policy committee and not go anywhere. And so it's while I engage city staff and the mayor to review legislation, there's also a little bit of create a little bit of a barrier from bombarding them with every piece of legislation, because I do know that some pieces will not go very far. And so what I'm hoping, because we've had great success down in Olympia in securing funding for projects that are important to Bremerton. I'm hoping that that will be one of our priorities that we discuss down there. And what I'll do is I'll prepare a little cheat sheet for you. But right now we've got 3 things, actually 4 things that we're looking to pursue funding for. And so I'm happy to go into details on those, or go back to your question about legislation. There aren't any specific pieces of legislation that I will have you advocate for, just because as a council, it's important for the council to take positions on bills so that when you're down there, you're not talking about one bill that might be important to you that may not be important, or that other members of the council are in opposition to. So we're not in a position where we have the council review bills and create positions. It's more of a situation where I rely on staff to provide me feedback on whether legislation will impact the city directly. And so right now there's a couple pieces that are important to the city that like law enforcement, the Blake decision, law enforcement pursuit legislation that's moving through. But unless the council kind of takes positions specifically on a bill, it's challenging to have you advocate for a bill down there. Does that make sense?
Okay, now I'm on. Thank you, Mr. McConaughy. So basically,
Please call me Bryan. Please call me
Oh,
Bryan.
Thank you, Brian. We're having some technical issues with some squeaking, so don't mind us if we start doing this. So I guess, I mean, I've done lobbying before personally. I just want to know like what our role is when we go to meet the legislators, just to say hi, and here we are. I guess if we're not advocating or not advocating one way or the other.
Well, you'll definitely be advocating for funding. I think we're all in agreement on the funding requests that we have forward. The 4 issues that we have that we'll be seeking additional funding for. So I think we'll all be in agreement on that. And then if the council does have a position on particular pieces of legislation, then I would welcome you sharing those on behalf of the council. It's just very important that whatever you're advocating for is mutually agreed upon by the council.
Ferries, for instance, funding for ferries.
Yeah, additional funding for ferries. It's there's yeah. I mean, again, we don't have much time, and so we'll basically get through introductions. We'll highlight the funding opportunities that we want. We'll touch on maybe 1 or 2 AWC topics that they're asking us to promote or push. And then, if we're lucky, we'll get a chance to talk about what's important to the council as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. McConaughy, or Brian. Have a good one.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Well, and that's something that we might want to consider doing too, is with the legislature. And Councilmember Fry, I see your hand is up as well, so I'll wrap up and let the president switch over to you. But during the off season is really when you have a chance to engage legislators, and so you might want to consider doing something in the off season from May until December, where the council has a more longer time with a legislator and can talk more detail. So
perfect, thank you. And I'll just note, I know that 3 of us will, Anna, Jennifer, and myself, who are going down, we'll have time to tag up with you individually before meeting different legislatures, so we can.
Yeah, and I'll have a handout that we can present to each legislator as we meet with them. And if there's one or two or three topics that the council agrees to share with the legislators, then just make me aware of that and we'll just include that in our presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to Denise here, but just the other questions on the current legislative session.
I just wanted to say, don't forget to say thank you. You know, any advocacy visit I've made with the YWCA or any other organization, I've tried to always thank them for their past, current support before doing the same thing for the money. So anyway, just a suggestion as well to fellow council members. It's always good to say thanks.
Definitely, and we have a lot to be thankful for, right? You know, I was looking at last year's successes and, you know, not only did we get over 400,000 for the Bremerton Library, we also got 165,000 for the Kiwanis Park. And then we literally hit it out of the park when it came to transportation, 25 million for the Warren Avenue Bridge, 75 million for the Gorse Corridor, you know, yeah, so we've done very well, and yes, always saying thank you first is always a good thing to do.
Any other questions for Bryan? Anna?
Thanks, Brian. Hi, I'm Anna Mockler. You know, a number of us already do know Senators Randall and Rolfs and Representative Tara Simmons, so we have done some of that work. I just, and it's, I hope that this evening we will be able to say a minority of the council or a majority of the council or the entirety of the council really wants this, so that when we go down there, our voices have some basis rather than, hi, I, you know, just wanted to be in Olympia and chat with you. What is, I would normally in this situation, like once we run out of time, and we're gonna run out of time, just say, I will email you, you know, with these concerns. Is there some better way to do follow-up in your experience?
Yeah, I think it depends on, you know, what the conversation is and how it's flowing. Email is always the best way to do it. And if you have a personal relationship with, you know, what I like to do before and after each legislative briefing that we have is kind of do a pre-funk where we talk about the member, we talk about what's important to the member, we talk about how the member has helped us in the past. And, you know, that's where you might say, oh, I know her very well. I see her at coffee on Sundays, you know, or something like that, where then I can go, okay, you know, Councilmember Mockler will, you know, she'll follow up with you directly on that specific issue. So, so yeah, just our pre and post funk is really when we kind of figure out, you know, what's the next task.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
I'll propose we as a council, if there's time and general business towards the end of the meeting, if anyone had suggestions for things to push, but I think in general, between the three of us, we can represent the council well in terms of what we know is maybe a personal push versus what we know the council as a whole would support. But no, it's excellent to bring that up. Any other questions for Bryan? Seeing none, the only one I had was, have there been any specific asks that the city has made to the legislature so far in terms of funding?
Yeah, so we've got 4 asks that we're doing this year, primarily because we've had such good success over the last couple of years. We aren't doing specific transportation asks. There won't be. So this year, just to give you an overview of kind of where we are on the bigger picture. So this is what we call a long session. It's where they do the budgets for the next biennium. And so we will go until probably April 20th. And we started January 8th. And so, so the first 2 months of the legislative session are really focused on policy, getting policy bills through the process. And when we have our first cutoff on February 17th, things will kind of start to pivot towards more budget items, but we need to have our budget requests in by mid-February. And so this year we're doing 2 capital budget requests. The first one has already been endorsed and Representative Spencer Hutchins, who is newly elected to the 26th, he's going to carry the water on the Admiral Theater ask that we have. It's $160,000+ ask that basically just to help retrofit and update the Admiral Theater, which is the city's building, and it's managed and operated by the Admiral Theater Foundation. But we're just trying to get some upkeep and maintenance taken care of for that facility. And then a new one that just popped up that I wasn't aware of before the session started. So it's kind of a last minute ask. And so my hopes aren't that high, but we're going to submit it anyway, is roughly a $300,000 capital budget ask for the Jarstead swimming pool. There's some roof issues that I was made aware of that I felt would be a good ask to have for the 23rd legislative district. So the Admiral Theater will be a 26th legislative district. The roof will be the 23rd legislative district. And then we've got two projects that just missed getting funded in their programs that we applied for, grants that we applied for. And so I really wanted to focus on those for our budget asks. And the first one is View Ridge Elementary. It's a safe route to school phase 2. And this is through the Washington DOT's Safe Routes to School program. And we just missed out of funding by like 2 or 3 slots, and it's a significant project. I want to say it's $5 million, if not more. And so what we're going to be doing on that one is we're going to be advocating for additional money into that program so that our project will get funded. We're going to do the same thing in the Defense Community Compatibility Account Program, which is a new one that was started 2 years ago in the Department of Commerce. And the project that we're going to be seeking funding for is money for the Quincy Square. And I know that project is fully supported, but if we're able to get money through this state program, then that will save the city, money that can be used for other projects. And so that's those are the 4 items that we'll be pursuing funding component.
Excellent. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on that. Any last questions for Bryan? Bonus checking round 1 done. Okay, quick round 2. Anna?
Are our asks listed somewhere?
Yeah, I will have those for you as part of our preparation meeting that we have either the night before or the morning before all of our meetings.
Okay, well, I personally would prefer getting them earlier than that, but
I'm happy to send you an email with that list.
Just really quick follow-up question. The ask for the Admiral, the 150K, is that recurring or just a one-time ask?
It's one-time ask. It's just to take care of some ADA and some I believe electrical upgrades that need to be done. Just part of as part of our ownership of the building.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you again so much, Bryan, for briefing us and being here, and appreciate all the work you do for the city and all the great things you help us get accomplished. So.
Well, it's an honor to work for my hometown city. So I love the opportunity to continue to keep working for you. And on the legislative side of things, if there's a couple items that the council agrees wants to make a priority, then that would help me a lot. And we can discuss that before we go and do all of our meetings.
Excellent. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. All right, thanks again. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Wherever the camera is. All right. Okay, we'll move on to item A2. And give me one moment. I'm sorry, flopping around. Okay, no. Apologies, thank you. Okay, item A2, which is entitled Set Annual Compensation for the Bremerton Municipal Court Judge effective July 1st, 2022. So I'd like to welcome Court Administrator Jennifer Johnson and Judge Tracy Flood. Welcome back. And then before we get into it, just for council's awareness, there were items submitted by Administrator Johnson last night about 5 o'clock for this item. So because that was later than usual, and make sure people were aware. And then about an hour and a half ago, there was an email from the city attorney's office that addressed those items. And so if you haven't gotten the latest packet, I just wanted to make sure that everyone had that same information before we proceed. But with that, we'll turn it over to the two of you to present any update from when we last met 2 weeks ago and decided to table this item for more information to today.
There was an additional document that I sent tonight in regards to the 2015 certification from.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So thank you.
Sorry,
Close to the
I forgot.
mic.
I forgot.
Appreciate it.
There was a 2015 certification that was signed off by the mayor at that time, as the court wasn't in compliance with the TCI funds. So I forwarded that tonight just to the council, just to let you know. It's forwarded to Lori. Okay.
What time may I ask?
5:06.
Okay. So
Thank
it's
you.
sitting in our inbox. Okay.
So moving forward, I did receive Mr. Reyes' email, and I continue to address the issue, and he definitely clearly points out that the salary is to be be approved by council action. And there is a difference between the salaries and the benefits, and he clearly points that out. And that's what I've been saying this entire time, or asking the council for this entire time, is that this action wasn't taken care of in 2015. It was not taken care of at all. And so I'm asking the council to have this salary corrected so that the salary is at the 95%. And we can use the part of the trial court improvement funds to fix that gap. They previously used some of the funds for the commissioner's position so that we can get into compliance. This is not going to be a budget impact, as we can use some of those funds to cover that cost.
Okay, ready for me to go to questions. Or if there's anything else you wanted to add before we open the floor for questions?
No.
Okay. And I'll just ask folks to, keep it germane specifically to this grant program and its requirements is what we're discussing. So with that, Quinn.
Thank you, Administrator Johnson. I appreciate it. I know in our public safety meeting, I asked to get like a breakdown of other judges' salaries. It looks like that was submitted. It looks like deferred compensation isn't factored in for meeting the 95%. My question is, do these folks receive deferred compensation as part of their salary? That's the piece of information that I'm missing.
As part of their salary, no, I did.
None of these judges receive any sort of retirement benefits.
They do receive retirement benefits, but for the 95% requirement, none of them calculate in that deferred comp.
Right. And so the question that I'm really trying to struggle with, and I understand the court's position on this. The question I'm trying to grapple with is, we have an email from AOC, the administrator of this program, that says it's completely fine to take into account all deferred compensation when meeting the 95th percentile. We have that. I'm confused as to why, if the administrator of the program, who would be the one that would have the teeth to pull that funding, says it's fine to bundle this, what the issue is. Secondly, I think there's confusion around what judges are participating in retirement programs versus not. I think what would be really helpful, and apologies if this wasn't clear during public safety, is to know what total compensation packages judges from around the state are getting. Because deferred compensation is compensation, it's just taking advantage of tax and IRS code in order to defer tax payments until you withdraw when you're retiring. So that's the question that needs to be resolved. And I think it's separate than, are we already meeting the 95th percentile? We have an email from an administrator at AOC saying completely fine to include all programs of deferred compensation, not just matching. So I think there's two different conversations that need to be had. One, can you certify and still get these funds? The answer is yes, based on what the administrator is saying from AOC. I believe her last name is Swenson, Helen Swenson, after talking to her director. And so that's the position of the people who are actually administering these funds. The second question is, are we actually compensating Judge Flood in a competitive manner? And that can be a separate one when we decide what ordinance that we want to pass in order to set the judge's salary, which I think is a really important one. I think Judge Flood should be compensated at 95 to 100%. But the missing piece of information for me is, are other people receiving 4% into deferred compensation, or is it the straight compensation? They're not receiving anything. That's two pieces. And I think it's completely separate about whether or not we can certify to get this grant funding.
Did you want any comment back or questions on that, Quinn?
Okay.
Sure.
So-
Okay, cool.
The question that the court is bringing to you is the question of the certification. The information that has been provided is twofold. One in which the documentation from the past that is dated 2018 indicates something different than what the most recent email said. The most recent email said to include everything. But the issue for the court in signing the certification is that the BMC code says something different than what that says as well. And this, of course, is all coming from the certification email saying the judge has to certify this, it has to come from the email, and that's changed over time. The most recent email at that time, the mayor had to certify, so we provided that document. The court administrator at the time, Don Williams, or whatever her maiden name was, certified that the code was in non-compliance with what the program had established. So it was put forth to AOC that the code was going to be fixed in 2015. What we have is a code that says municipal court judges' salaries and benefits. It clearly sets the salary separate from the benefits. But what has been happening is the benefits have been being counted with the salary to meet the 95% need. The reason in the creation for the program was for the funds to be made available to not add to the municipality's budget or general budget line items, so that there was no hardship based on any small city to bring that cap up to 95%. And looking at the history here, that hasn't happened. So the reason for the creation of the program was to bring the salaries of the judges up to that 95% of the district, 95 to 100% of the district court judges. When Jennifer reached out to find out how this is all, because of course this is all new, a new judge in the new year. But when a judge receives an email that says certify, it has to come from you. I didn't have that direct information. What was then given to me was, this is your salary and these are your special benefits. So if I'm looking at this code, I still have a conflict as to what I can sign off on. And that's what I'm saying. We need, somehow or another, we need to fix that.
Thank you, Judge
So-
Flood. So,
That is all.
yeah, so my
In a nutshell.
question as a follow-up, and I understand the history of this. But what you're certifying is what you are actually being paid. That's what they're asking. And, you know, when you're sitting on the bench and new evidence comes, you, as long as it conforms with, what is it, Rule 403, right? Like, you need to consider that evidence. So I understand you were relying on the frequently asked questions from 2018 where it said just matching. But now you have new evidence from the administrator of the program saying, yeah, all deferred compensation can be taken into consideration.
Agree 100%.
So I still don't understand the hesitancy to certify when the administrator of the program is fine with that, especially when there's new evidence that was submitted. The 2015 Patty Lent certification, the BMC hadn't been updated since 2002. The program just needs somebody to say, this is what the judge is actually being paid.
But the
So
mayor
we're gonna-
did that. That's the difference, is we're saying that at that time, the mayor did the certification, or HR did the certification. So coming into this, I had to get that information, but to learn that that's all of the compensation, because the original response from HR was that it was 176, that was my salary. It was because we then said that can't be right, because it has to be the 183. We came here last summer. We quit coming along. We came here last summer, and we'll come again in July unless this is fixed, because it changes again in July.
Sure.
But that still doesn't answer the question of the salary being set by city council, that component of it, because then that doesn't match up. So if city council is saying that this is how it's going to be calculated, then with that in writing, the judge is happy to certify. But that still doesn't speak to the BMC code being incorrect, because it said that the city council, so I'm saying there's layers that needed to be fixed before that. And we're trying to correct it
Sure,
now.
absolutely.
Yeah, and again, just a reminder to keep it, let's try and keep the conversation focused on the trial court funding
That is
requirement.
the focus.
Sure. So I think city council, if I'm reading the room correctly, is dedicated to looking at the BMC, updating the BMC, updating the judge's salary. I think the way this is being presented in being unable to certify, even though we have an email from the body saying, yes, you can include all deferred compensation, makes all of us hesitant to do that.
So is
That
the
that
city,
is,
I guess the question would be then, is the city council saying that the judge can certify this based on the city council setting the judge's salary to include the deferred comp? That's what hasn't been said. What's being said is we've gotten this email, the BMC code still says this, but I don't have anything. And then we were told to come to city council because city council sets the judge's salary. So we're going through the proper channels so that we can get this done properly, and that it doesn't come back and say, well, it should have happened again in 2022 or 2023, and it still hasn't happened.
I understand. I think the course of performance, even with the documentation that Administrator Johnson showed, is that AOC is fine receiving certification from somebody at the city that, yes, this person is making 95 to 100%, and deferred compensation can be included in that. So I understand that we need to go back and fix the BMC. I just have not received enough evidence at this point that makes me believe that we cannot certify that you're making 95%, including that 4%. And I'll pass it over to my fellow.
Yeah, sounds good.
council
Let's, no, thank you, Quinn. And can I ask to get Denise back up on the Zoom just to make sure I don't miss her if she has her hand up, but I saw Jennifer's hand and then Anna.
Okay. Thank you for sending that. It's like a wage study. I do agree that it would be nice to see the deferred compensation, but again, and which BMC is it that's that's not up to code with the recertification as you're explaining? You know, the BMC by chance?
It's included with micro rate
Okay,
attachments.
okay. You. Wow, Corinne. And so, right. But it's in Michael Reyes. I
Yes,
guess I,
he
and
had it
I'm-
as an attachment.
I think what I hear you saying though is that you want you're doing the right thing to try to get a salary raise as best as you know to do.
No.
I mean, or to go through, I'm sorry, not the salary raise. Let me rephrase what I'm saying. Hold on just a minute. Because you're going through the process that is set forth, as you know, from being that council is here to, and council is here to approve these changes, which the change is what you assumed we needed for the grant. But I feel like these are two separate issues, right? We got a grant funding that we're looking at and we have a recertification, but we're just here specifically to talk about the recertification so that you can participate in the grant, correct?
So I'm gonna state it again. The BMC code says that the city council is to set the salary. We were here last July and August because the salary changes mid-year. Because that was told to be the process, that when the judge's salary changes, the BMC code requires for city council to approve.
Okay.
There's a certification that is required twice a year. That's my understanding. This is the first certification that has been sent to me directly that said it needed to come from my email and for me to sign it as presiding judge.
Okay, I think, yeah, that gave me a clearer picture, and I know you had to re-explain it to me, and I apologize.
No,
You
no
having to
problem.
repeat yourself.
And just one last thing, the
Yes, ma'am.
certification is for the funds that were created through this grant fund to meet the gap of the salary. That's the whole hit and caboodle.
Okay, so, and if, I think this has just been so murky for me and I want to do the right thing. And, I mean, it first came about because there was a grant, we needed to get certified, but the certification couldn't happen because there wasn't a 95%, because the deferred wasn't included in it, because that was an interpretation that was presented. Okay, now it's been proven that, and we did approve it, but now, and that was back when you came to us in August, right? So we approved it,
Right.
but now we're getting new information that says that your deferred can be included. So the interpretation that was presented to us originally has been proven to be the wrong interpretation in a sense. Not to say that you were wrong, because it was an interpretation that you thought was correct, but now we have clarification from two different sources now, because now we have our legal, and we also have AOC saying, no, you can include deferred. So, I personally feel like there needs to be a better way for your compensation to be evaluated than having to come to us every time, right? So like what we
I
have,
agree.
yes, ma'am. We have independent, we have independent committees that review our salary, that review the mayor's salary. Why don't we have that for you, right? So it sounds to me like that. I mean, I know this isn't germane to what we're talking about, but it is in that, if that's what you're coming here to talk to us about.
Yeah. So no,
Um,
focused on the court funding. and the
So, but it says set annual compensation. So I am keeping it germane to the topic on here. So it sounds like an update to the BMC code is necessary.
It-
All right.
Thank you.
I
Okay, Donna.
agree 100%. And I think that's what it comes back to is that technically we're trying to say AOC is setting their salaries and I'm coming to you for that information now. But we also have the BMC code that separates out salary and benefits. And that's what I keep going back to is that it's fine if city council is saying this is it. But without that information, it doesn't have that appearance. And as you said, we take in new evidence comes along, we consider it, we give it the weight that it needs to be given. But that still doesn't change the code and certification that's needed, which goes back to the original reason why we were in front of,
Want to stay focused on the agenda bill that was submitted to council
which is the
is
certification.
a request to set an annual compensation at a certain level because of this requirement from the trial court. So I want to keep the discussion focused on just the trial court requirement. And with that, let's go to Anna.
Jeff? All right, Judge Flood. Each one of us keeps like forgetting to do this thing called, this is how much we respect and admire you and the programs that you are bringing to the court. We're forgetting that part. Counselor Denise, you're up there going, don't forget to say thank you. Okay, so
Thank
I'm
you.
saying thank you. So here, this was first presented to us as a matter of urgency, like you're not being able to be certified would mean 21K would not come to this court. And even worse, it was going to mess up all the other judges in the state of Washington. But that's no longer true. So we have time in hand to consider, right? So we have time in hand to go, let's fix the BMC. Let's figure out a way for you not to have to like come and go, oh, council, please give me a raise. Let's do that in a leisurely fashion. But for right now, you're able to go ahead, both Helen Swenson, yes. And Michael Rea have said, you know, you can go ahead and certify with the salary that it is now, right? And so let's just move forward, and for a future study session, let's like really dig into this and figure out how can we get a way that the municipal judge can get the raise that the municipal judge deserves. Am I still staying on track?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd wrap it up. I'd wrap it up there, but
Okay, I'm all done.
all right. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Any other
Judge.
council members for a comment? 'Cause I'm sorry, I didn't hear a question in that. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to echo my fellow council members here. Again, going back to, this was an item brought to us of, we need to increase the salary to this level in order to meet this trial court funding. That's what's been brought to us. So that's what we need to evaluate in this moment. And I think now I'm of the mind of all the emails and everything received is that indeed the administrator office of the courts has said, yes, you can certify that you meet the 95% threshold given your current salary and deferred comp. And that you're good to do that. So I don't see any action for council to take that you currently meet those guidelines for the program by the program administrator itself. And I, just to do due diligence ahead of time, dug into that BMC and that RCW. And what I see is that under 2.62.035 subsection B, it says, it says total compensation, basically. It doesn't say salary, it says compensation. And same thing with the actual state RCW. It just says that a full-time judge is compensated at a rate equivalent to at least 95%. So I'm seeing that the BMC, the RCW, the letter from the Administrative Office of the Courts, all is saying that you are okay to certify that you meet the 95% threshold. So I'm not seeing an action here that council needs to take, and in a second, I'll defer to rest of council to see if they agree. I think Judge Flood, you might have options that, if you want to, I understand you don't want to perjure yourself or anything, but maybe you could explain the conversation we had, attach the email when you certify it, if you want to. If not, I think it was the RCW or BMC. I saw that it really just needs to be certified by the city. I think that was the RCW. So if there's someone else in the city that can certify it, maybe that's an option, but I'm going to look to my fellow council members. I think on the conversation I'm hearing, there isn't a consensus that we need to take action on this. So is council okay with basically not even putting this on the agenda next week? And if a request to change the salary based on some other circumstance or another impetus for increasing the salary, that can be resubmitted in the future for our consideration. But again, going back to, we're here to consider this increase specifically because of the trial court funding requirement. I'm personally not seeing it. So I'm going to look for head nods to move on, and let me look at Denise. Okay. Absolutely. Any branch or department can submit items for council consideration for future events.
So we will be back again in July.
That is, yep, that's your, yeah. Mhm. Or under a
the
different,
second certification.
under a different circumstance. That's fine. So I think let's go ahead and those conversations can happen offline, and we'll move along to item A3, but this
So
will,
can I wait
this-
before
oh,
you
sure.
say A3?
Mhm.
I want to make sure that what I'm understanding in the question that was presented is that the salary, the way that it's calculated is what the city council is saying is it includes the deferred compensation and reaching the 95% for the city of Bremerton.
I'm seeing consensus that the city council has gotten enough evidence between AOC and our legal department that your salary plus compensation meets the 95% threshold, that there is no action that we need to take in order for you to certify that form and the city still receive the trial court grant funding.
The court.
For that grant funding to occur, there's no action that city council needs to take.
For the court to receive the grant.
For the court,
Not
yeah.
the city.
Sorry,
Okay.
the court as
I
part
just
of
wanna make sure.
the court as part of the city. Yeah. We're all
Court
three.
is in
We're all
the
part of the city. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
All right. But thank you.
thank you.
All right. Well, so that item A2 will not go on next week's agenda. And we'll move now to item A3 for City Attorney Kylie Fennell and Risk Management Specialist Melissa Former to present purchase of 2023 excess workers' compensation insurance with Midwest Employers Casualty Company. Welcome and take it away.
Hey there. So, you all have your agenda, Bill. This one's pretty straightforward. So the only thing I want to point out on the summary that, I do want to note, that last sentence, this says the only change is there is an additional self-insured retention for employees injured during a wildland fire event is 1.5 million. That's actually not a change. That was on the agenda, Bill, from last year. You might realize we recycled them. And so because that was in this last year, it's not a change for this year. So if you flip over to the comparison, what you'll see is that there is about a $13,000 increase, and that's what we're requesting that you approve for this coming year. And I can talk about that, like why it increased a little bit if you'd like. As you can see, there is a estimated worker hours that had a 7% increase. And then there's also a 10% commission on this year that wasn't on last year. And there's a really good reason for that. And I can explain that if anyone wants further. Okay, everyone wants the explanation. Okay. So as you recall, we used to be self-insured. And so we had an insurance broker and we had a number of policies that they would go out and get for us. And we paid a flat fee brokerage fee. But when we were transitioning over to being self-insured, we realized that was kind of silly because we didn't have as many policies for the broker to get for us. And so we were paying what, like $30,000 or $25,000 a year in brokerage for them to do our work. And so it was a flat fee. And now we do a 10% commission. And with Marsh. So we switched from Brown and Brown to Marsh, and we only have one policy with them. So it was going to be less than it was than doing a one-time $25,000 fee. Even still, I don't think that actually would have, with the worker hour change between 2022 and 2023, I think it would have ended up being about the same, but some of what we paid, in the last year category, that 125, you can think of it, that would have included, some sort of compensation either under the brokerage fee or the commission that's not included in that total. Because it was a separate fee.
Any questions, council? Seeing none, I have none myself. So if that's still the case, there are folks good with this being a consent? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Next up, item A4, Fire Chief Pat McConaughy is here to present. We have an ordinance amending section 2.50.032 of the Bremerton Municipal Code relating to promotion, salary, and benefits. Welcome, Chief McConaughy. Take it away.
Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Yes, what is proposed is a amendment to the Bremerton Municipal Code to allow for management professionals that have come out of the bargaining unit to get the same cost of living raises as the bargaining unit members. Back in 2000, I brought the original change of the BMC to the council, and I missed one. So it should have been 0.31 versus 0.32, and that's just correcting this. So under the BMC, under section 2.50. I think it's into 2.50.031 has to do with salary increases for management. When I brought the original document, I started at 032 and went to 070, and I should have started at 031, which 031 covers cost of living increases.
Correct. Just to be totally clarified, that was the last time you came to council. Our current packet is, has what we need.
Correct.
Perfect.
Right. This is just correcting the salary increases versus salary benefits. So it will maintain that they get the same salary and benefits as the collective bargaining units. And they have to come out of our current bargaining unit to get that. So if they're hired from outside, they would not get that, the same benefits.
Excellent. And that's
my
the
presentation.
perfect. That's the red text in our packet on, yes, page
Correct.
18. Okay. Any questions for Chief McConaughy? Anna?
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
So the firefighters union has signed off on this?
Yes. They don't need to sign off on it, but they're in agreement. with it.
I know they don't
Yeah.
need to.
Yes, they're in agreement.
But
with
is
this.
there any representative of the union here?
No.
Okay. Will these professional, managerial, promoted employees still be paying union dues?
That is up to them. They don't have to pay union dues. They're not in the union.
Okay.
They're coming out of the union, and really what we're talking about is one position, it's the assistant chief's position. That's the only position that is not, besides myself, which is not represented by the. So, if somebody comes out of the bargaining unit, and we brought this forward back in 2020, where it would be a significant cost to the employee coming out of the bargaining unit to a tune of about $9,000 to $10,000 a year. So it's really hard to get somebody to come to management side when it's going to cost them that much money. And that's why we made the change at that time. So I'm just asking to correct the cost of living increases for this.
I understand. I would not feel comfortable putting this on consent without like specific thumbs up from the firefighters union. Because I'm a serious union type.
Well, so this benefits any of the union members that would be coming to management, or it benefits them. So Yeah. it
So we'll-
pertains to the union benefits.
One at a time, sorry, one at a time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand that this could be perceived as really beneficial, but since the IAFF is part of this, I'd just like to hear an email from them, a text, just something before the general meeting next Wednesday.
Try to get Patty to send you something.
That would be very pleasant indeed.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Quinn,
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Chief, for this. Just to be clear, like when I was unionized, I was part of a step progression, but I also had a COLA. This is just talking about the COLA once you move into a management position. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, yeah, thanks so much.
Jennifer, was your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, she makes a valid point about bringing somebody from, I mean, it's a small change. COLA isn't significant, but it is nice to, I guess, to have some sort of verification from the union representatives. So I think I would like, if we can get that, that'd be great. And so would this be on general business then, or is that what we're requesting?
If one or more of you request it, that goes in general business.
Okay. Are you,
But
I'm in-
hold on, wanted to. So Jennifer, are you talking to me or?
okay,
All right,
sorry about
I
that.
gotta force the rules there.
Oh, my gosh. I think it would be nice to have this on general business and get verification of union approval.
Make sure no other comments, questions from council members. Not seeing any, Anna.
I'm perfectly happy for it to be on consent if we get something from the union before the next meeting. And I'm just saying, I'm not like trying to, say, this must be on general business. I just want to see that. And then I'm perfectly happy for it to be on consent and shorten your work week, Chief.
So what I can propose is that council's in agreement, we put it on consent, but of course, any council member has the right at any time before the meeting next week to pull it down to general business. So if I can make that proposal, if folks are comfortable, and at any time you can request it to go down to general business.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
Would you like that email sent to just the city council email?
Sure,
to
city
Lori?
council, and that'll get
Okay.
distributed to all council members. Okay.
Thank
All
very
right. Thank you,
much.
Chief McGanny. We got clear direction. So this will go on consent. Is the current decision. All right, next up we have, I'm sorry, got my watch. Okay. In council, we hit the 1.5 hour mark and I forgot to have a 5-minute recess. Please let me know. Item A5 is Managing Engineer Bill Davis is here to present change order number 2 to contract with Active Construction Inc. for Oyster Bay Beach Sewer Upgrades Project. Welcome, Mr. Davis. That microphone, one of the buttons. Yeah.
Good evening, Bremerton City Council. Okay, thank you. I'm here to talk about change order number 2 with ACI for the Oyster Bay Beach Sewer Upgrades Project. Hans, can you go ahead? Can you go ahead and put on that PowerPoint? So go ahead and change to slide number 2. I wanted to start out by giving you an update on the project. This project has been going on for quite a while. It started back in July of 2021, and we just reached substantial completion this past October. And some of the highlights were that we installed the new 12-inch diameter sewer force main from a pump station on Madrona Point Drive all the way to OB1, which is near the Oyster Bay Inn for future use. And then we installed 33 residential grinder pump systems, as well as 9 duplex grinder pump systems at the Oyster Bay Inn, Tony's Pizza, Bayshore Condos, and West Lawn Place. Next. So the basis for this change order are some unexpected costs that we had at the Oyster Bay Inn, as well as along the beach sewer. And the first one I wanted to discuss was the one at the Oyster Bay Inn, 4412 Kitsap Way. So there was some unusual occupancy that resulted in some extremely high peak flows at the hotel. Most hotels don't experience this type of peak flow, but what we noticed, well, let me back up a little bit. On October 3rd, we noticed we received a high alarm at the pump station. So we checked it out, why this was occurring, and looked at the flow information that we had. And talked to the owner of the hotel and we found out that the occupancy, 2/3 of the occupants would leave each morning as a group and then come back as a group at the end of the day between 6 and 7 p.m. And then they would use the bathroom facilities there as, at the same time between 7 and 8. And we were experiencing really high peak flows, 20 gallons a minute, whereas these pumps are rated 23 to 25 gallons per minute. So we were getting these alarms and we made some modifications, some temporary modifications in order to accommodate those flows. But we worked with our consultant to come up with a solution to install an additional duplex pumping system. That means 2 more pumps. So currently there's 2 pumps there and we're going to install an additional 2 pumps. We did notice, I looked at some of the data and these occupants left shortly before Thanksgiving and the peaks aren't high anymore, but it may be that way next year also. So we want to be prepared for that. So that is one portion of the cost of this change order. Go ahead, Hans. And the second one is for some additional work associated with our beach sewer. So that 3,000-foot long beach sewer where we took all those grinder pumps off, we went back and the plan was to cut and cap all the laterals on the beach sewer so that at a future time we could use that beach sewer if we needed to as a redundant force main. So based on the information that we had at the time, we made some assumptions. We had never worked on the beach at the laterals before. We made some assumptions about the connection, that they were to be capped with what was called mechanical joint cap or plug. And when we actually got down there on the beach and started to do some investigation, we realized that method would not work. So we had to come up with a different method for capping the beach main. And you can see some of the capping method up there with those threaded rods, the clamp there and the plug there at the end. So those things were, yeah, that's a close up there of the middle one right there. And if you can see those yellow bags right there, those are from asbestos, collection of asbestos cement pipe. We knew that some of the laterals were going to be asbestos cement, but not all of them. We didn't have good record documents about what was there. So it took extra handling and disposal. So they originally estimated 4 hours to do that work, and it ended up taking about 6 hours per lateral to do that work. So there were extra costs associated with that. And then the other extra costs for the beach work was we wanted to avoid a spill on the beach, and the main was continually filling up. So we were proactive when we positioned Vector trucks, these vacuum trucks, up at the top of the beach to ensure that if any leakage did occur, we immediately vacuumed it up. So that was an expense that was necessary in order to avoid a spill on the beach. So those costs added up. We had to do this work. We had a very tight window to do this work. We have these things, these periods called fish windows where Fish and Wildlife and Ecology and various organizations that permit us to work on the beach allow us to do it. So we needed to do the work quickly. We had to do it during the daytime, and tides, as the year goes along, the tides get worse and worse. Tides become, the good tides tend to move towards the night. So we accomplished this work as efficiently and as quickly as we could. So this just summarizes the costs. Work change directive number 23, that was the one at the Oyster Bay Inn, is $43,000 for the pump and some restoration that we're going to do there. The materials have been ordered, but the installation is pending. And work change directive number 28 was for the extra work on the beach, and $50,000 of that has already been paid for as part of the original contract. But this change order that we're requesting, that $32,000 additional, will be paid for after this change order. So, thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Council, any questions? Seeing any? Going once? Oh, Anna. Go ahead, Anna, and then Eric.
Sorry.
I don't. Okay. Perfect.
Hey, good evening, Bill, Mr. Davis. So with that Oyster Bay Inn, you put in two additional grinders
We will be putting it
to deal with these unusual occupants. Did Oyster Bay just say, step up and say, thank you, Public Works, we'd like to pay for them ourselves?
No, unfortunately, no.
I thought perhaps.
Yeah, we're actually, there are some, we're actually struggling a little bit in our relationship with Oyster Bay right now. Me and Michael Rea are going to be meeting with the owner and their attorney next week to talk through some of the issues associated with that.
Well, I very sincerely wish you all the best in those meetings. And I'm not going to ask you any more questions because you are actually two people right now, right? You're doing two positions right now?
So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so no more. Three?
Admin-
Plus he has a
admin-
social life? Okay,
Jermaine.
that was really my only question. I certainly think that Oyster Bay could step up and say, gosh. But
Eric.
Apparently I had a question, so I better come up with one. It's actually a clarification. I believe that all the residents at least were required to pay for the grinders. They have financing agreement, or else it's a maintenance agreement. I forget which one. Is it the maintenance agreement? And the city put in the grinders? Is that the
Yes,
scenario?
yes, it's all loan funded. It's almost all loan funded. And it's the maintenance agreement that each property owner signs with the
Okay.
city.
All right, that's all I have. So then this sounds appropriate. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Keep looking on my shoulder because that's where the screen is for Denise. So just people see that. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Excellent. All right. Seeing no other questions, folks good with consent? All right. Seeing all nods, this will go on consent for next week. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next up, we have item A6. Public Works Director Tom Nucky is here to present street fund budget adjustment for the PSE-owned streetlight LED conversion program. Welcome, Director Nucky.
Thanks. We just, we've been we always keep our eyes out for opportunities, and this is one that just came to light here recently. And it's a new rebate program, I'm sorry, that PSE put together for conversion of their streetlights from high pressure sodium to LED. So in the city, we have three types of streetlights. We have streetlights that are owned by the city, and all of those have been converted to LED for quite a few years now. Then there's a few streetlights that are privately owned on private streets, and they're not the city's responsibility. And then there's PSE-owned streetlights, and other than the downtown core, most of the city actually had almost 1,800 lights are PSE-owned lights, and we pay a monthly tariff of about $14 for high pressure sodium lights and about $11 for LED lights. And when we did the math a couple of years ago, we determined that based on the high cost of conversion of the lights, it would take about 7 years for the return on the investment. And in talking to finance, just determined that didn't make sense, because right now, as the lights fail, PSE is going out at their cost, and they're replacing them, the high pressure sodiums with LEDs that have a much longer life. Anyway, PSE's made us aware of this program that reduces the installation cost, so that there's about a 4-year return on investment. And so we'd like to take advantage of that and do a programmatic conversion of all the streetlights in the city. It's pretty affordable. It's about $68,000 per year over a 3-year term, and we convert about 1,600 lights to LED. That's everything. So happy to answer any questions.
All right. Council Quinn.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Nucky. It makes sense financially. Can you tell me a little bit about the environmental impact? Am I right that LED lights take a lot less energy to operate versus the sodium?
Yeah, night and day. I've got the wattage down here, but an equivalent LED to high pressure sodium is like 100-watt high pressure sodium light is comparable to a 39-watt LED light. So I mean, this is great for the region as we have more EVs. It's just less strain on the power grid. We think it's a responsible thing to do. And also it's going to look better too, because we won't have mismatched lights, and they're all going to be 3,000 that the rating, the warmer temperature, correlated color temperatures.
That's like the.
That's the
more
warmer.
warm,
That's not the real bright
cool.
one. It's the one that we adopted based on discussions here a couple years ago.
Yeah, all
Mhm.
for it. Great job. Thanks a lot.
Eric?
This is kind of fascinating, Tom. And why, and there's a basis why I'm asking this question. Why do we own 1,008 city-owned streetlights? PSE owns 1,788 lights. Is it just the different time frame that at one point PSE owned all the lights, and then after a certain date, if we wanted lights, the city had to pay for them? Why is there a difference? Why doesn't the city own all the lights or vice versa?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I haven't actually looked into the history of that to understand that very well, but I know that the lights that we own, so the PSE line lights, you've got power lines, you put a luminaire on it, and you can pull power straight off of the pole. We can't do that. So the city-owned street lights are in areas in the downtown area where we have those very nice architectural lights, where we have I want to call it a circuit. That's not the right terminology, but we actually run power from a power meter to all of our lights, and then we meter all of those lights together, right? And so the lights the PSE owns are typically unmetered. They're just hanging on a pole, and then we pay a tariff for that. And I think you're probably right. I think that generally speaking, that probably most of the lights in the city were those PSE owned lights. And then as we've done capital projects, we've separated them out. It's less expensive when we own them, but I can't tell you for sure, but I think that makes sense to me.
Okay, so then how is the tariff computed? Or does PSC just get to set the rate, or is that negotiated? Because they're not really monitoring their cost of power.
It's something that they coordinate with the UTC, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then the reason why I'm asking this, I almost hate to ask this. I don't want to not just have this happen, but the premise of gift of public funds. So we're taking city of Bremerton money to improve something that's not owned by us. However, that particular improvement will reduce our tariff. So there is a positive effect for the city. I understand that, but it is not our property. So do we have a potential gift of public funds?
Boy, I sure don't think so. And I think Mike Riley would be able to speak
So
to
actually,
that.
I think that's an attorney question, and not
oh,
a Mike
okay.
Riley question.
Okay, well, he's not, he's former auditor, is the only reason I say that, but it's an asset to the street utility, not the street utility, it's an asset that supports the street, right? It actually, it's not, if we were doing this and we were eliminating parking lot, a private parking lot for a church or something like that, then I could see that, but what we're doing is we're eliminating the street, the sidewalk for vehicle and pedestrian safety. And we regularly pay for relocation of lights, upgrade of lights. We pay to have additional lights installed. Very, very typical. I can ask a question, but
Again, I don't want to repeat this thing. I was just curious because it's a fascinating thing here, different light ownership. See, as well, they probably don't want to switch it over to the city because then you'd have to change the metering and everything. So it's basically they're going to own them forever.
it'd be very, I mean, for us to, we'd have to install poles. We'd have to install a metering system, power feed. It would make sense to do that as part of a larger capital improvement project, corridor improvement project at high cost. But otherwise, the way that we're managing it is, continuing to work with PSE through the tariff project program.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Okay, so this is coming from REIT. And so, I guess Okay, it sounds really like a great program, and to make it uniform and pretty all throughout the city, better for the environment. Do we know long term what the budget impact is going to be for return on this sort of investment, if you know what I mean? Like how
Yep.
much money are we going to save?
Absolutely. So it's a $70,000, about $70,000 a year investment for 3 years. And once complete, using the current tariff rates, it will save about $57,000 a year once they're all converted.
And I guess I'm hesitant about, I guess I'm just hesitant to continue using the REIT funds. Is it, because my understanding was that they were all allocated, that we had plans for all the REIT funds as match for projects coming in the next 4 years. And so what is the trade-off? Which project is going to be lacking? And also, does this, what basically, which project are we taking away from? Because it sounded to me like all the REIT funds were
I think
predetermined.
from the forecast REIT fund balance, too bad Mike's not here to speak to
He
that, but-
was here on Zoom for a minute. Okay, maybe I'll ask him next meeting about that.
I can
yeah.
follow up with him and just get an email to council if you'd like.
Thank you. That would be great. I'd just like to see where we're pulling from. It just, if we can't get any of these REIT funds for affordable housing projects necessarily, for any large projects, I guess I'm just wondering why we're upgrading to make pretty lights when we don't have, we just have this special ability to use these REIT funds for affordable housing projects. That's just my humble opinion. Not that I don't like to save the environment or save, you know, taxpayer dollars, have beautiful lighting and things for the city. I just was under the impression that all those REIT funds were already designated. So I'll ask Mike at another time. That's all. That's my whole question. Thank you, sir.
Before I go to Anna, Attorney Fennell, did you want to jump in about the use of public funds, or do you want to wait until maybe the next session?
Oh, Mike. See him.
Oh,
Hey.
And there's Mike
Hey,
Riley.
there he
Okay.
is.
So, no, okay. So, yeah, Mike, sorry, Director Riley, please go ahead. If you've been.
All right, thank you. Yeah, no, I was sitting and listening. I have an answer for both questions if you want, but I'll defer to the attorney on the skip to public funds one. I sent Tom some information. In regards to the refunds, our forecast model has soft targets for projects that are out there for 6 years. Currently budgeted. No, not all the REIT funds have been budgeted and allocated to specific projects, but we do have some projects that we kind of forecast. Those change, every year, kind of looking at what we're going to do. There's, unallocated, about $2 million of unallocated REIT funds that are available to be able to use to this project. And I think Tom, earlier said the payback on this is 4 years. We'll see a complete payback in 4 years.
It's 4 years, yes.
Fantastic. Any other questions from council? Oh, Anna, thank you. Sorry.
No, Tom. Could you put something in writing before this comes back to council that says the lights will be warm? Here are the specs. They will be the warm lights. Fear not.
Well, it's our new standard, right?
I know,
So
but-
we're just implementing for our standard. I can add that to the council summary. if you'd like.
I would really appreciate that, and it's something I'm going to be able to pull up for every single constituent who's going to ask me about it. So thank you very much. I too would really prefer not to steal from REIT. Affordable housing, residential streets, that's a designated funding source for residential streets, is it not?
Yeah, and parks, and I mean, it has a lot of uses. If council opts to not go down this path, all the lights will be converted as they fail, and we estimate it'll take about 10 years and they'll convert. I mean, that's the other option.
That was a very clear laying out of the situation. I guess my next question then is, like, it definitely looks like the tariffs will go way down, and that's a savings over a certain number of years. But do we have any assurance from PSE that the tariffs will not increase dramatically? Because that's a kind of thing that a large monopoly utility can do.
No, as a matter of fact, they indicated that they, and I mentioned it in here that
Right.
there's potential that the high pressure sodium tariffs will increase and that the LED tariffs are more reliable.
Okay, but they won't, but yeah,
And as far as their rebate program, there's no guarantees on that either. They have a rebate program currently. They indicate that they will reevaluate that every year and could eliminate it at any time. The implementation of the conversion would be done in, they call it phases. And we're anticipating 4 phases a year for 3 years. And we would, any rebate would be established at the time that the phase is complete. And so if they, and each phase costs about like $17,000 or something. If the rebate goes away, then we would just stop the conversion.
okay. If they do it themselves, would they be using the new standard warm LED light or? would
It's
they-
our city standard. That's all they're putting in the city
Okay.
from this point forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
That
Seeing any urgent questions from council, I see the mayor's hand up.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
just-
Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if you put in a specific specification that we have to, that we agree to per ordinance, just want to make sure nothing changes where we are locked in on this ordinance. If we have an improvement, if there's an improvement and there's a new grade that provides a better quality, same white light quality that we all love, but there's other things that might be better about it. So I'm just leaving, I don't expect that to happen in 3 years. We're gonna probably stick with what we have, but if we lock it in, yeah, it could create a complication maybe. I'll leave it up to Tom and Kylie, and of course, working with you, council.
Just a
Thanks.
little clarification. So the action before council is really providing the budget adjustment in order to allow us to execute to provide the funds to allow us to execute the agreements to do the light conversion. That we're anticipating, 4 contracts a year that would go out under the mayor's authority, and they'd be individual. So if anything changes regarding standards, we have the ability to address those with each contract.
So it sounds like just including a reference to what is currently the city policy. Sorry, just including a reference to what the current city policy is on the lighting.
Regarding the color temperature?
Is all that's required. Yeah, not to amend this, not to amend our motion to require a certain temperature, just a reference that folks can look at and see that the city, this is the current city specs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
attached
right. We're not-
attached to the agenda bill, I've got a summary and I can just add it in the summary.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be easy to do, sure.
Mhm, perfect. All right, yes, sir. Do round 2 here, checking. Yep, okay, good.
Yeah, so Tom, the cost savings for implementing this, who pays the electric bills? Is it Public Works or general fund money?
So the power bill is part of the street fund, so it's paid out of the street fund, and then in 22, it was like $420,000.
Okay, so that's general fund.
It's revenue to the street fund, yeah, and I guess that could otherwise be general fund. I think that's probably better answered by Mike. There's a bunch of different resources that go in there. There's stormwater utility tax, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of different revenue sources.
So it's clear as mud. But you don't have to answer this. The point I'm getting at, Councilmember Chamberlain brought up, and it's an interesting proposition. So you're saving money. I don't think there's any doubt based on your statistics that after the 4-year, you're paying 6 times 50,000 or so. So 300,000 on the back end. And then that incremental, which I can't do in my head because it's over a 4-year period of how much money you're saving. Versus not doing anything at all and having PSE pay for the cost of replacing the lights. So there's definitely a payback, but it's a payback to which fund? REIT money, which is specifically dedicated for capital improvements, only comes from real estate excise tax. And so that's a source of funding you only can get through buying and selling of properties. And that won't be replenished by these savings. So that's an interesting thing. Hang on, before I lose my train of thought, which I'm already doing. So that is That's an interesting, dimension. So overall, for the health of the city, it would make sense to do this. But if you're concerned about a specific fund being replenished, you may pause. Because the REIT fund goes down, whereas the general fund and the public works revenue gets benefit from that. But we're all taxpayers, so I get that too. So it's not clear cut savings. Overall it is, but it's at the detriment of the REIT fund.
So like I said, there's, probably more than a half dozen different revenue streams that go into the street fund. But one of those is general fund. I think it's like 1.4 million, I believe, is revenue to the street fund for 2023. So if you wanted to look at it as benefiting the street fund or the general fund, that would be appropriate, I think.
Right. So I think I'm seeing folks are probably gonna want this on general business, given it's a large sum of money from REIT. I see at least one nod for that. Okay, so we'll put this on general business. Perfect. I have one thing to say though, and it's controversial and I'm probably in the minority, but I got to get this off my chest. The sun is 5,779 Kelvin. I think all our light bulbs should match the sun for daylight, but that's my minority opinion as astronomer, but I'll go on the record that every bulb in my house is at least 5,000 K. But that's,
Point of order.
gotta had to say that. All right, germane, not germane.
Is this germane,
Point accepted.
Council President?
Where's my sheet? Thank you for correcting me. You are correct. We will move on. Oh, did you, sorry, did you have an actual, another round two? Okay, I'll be fair. Yes.
Perhaps another funding source could be sought before next Wednesday. That's part A. Part B is you wanted to be reminded if anyone wanted to fund
Yes.
event
we
break.
asked you. Thank you. Okay, so this will go on general business for next week. Thank you so much, Director Nucky, for an enlightening conversation. All right, and yes, seeing as the next item I think is probably going to take a while and be meaty, let's do a 5-minute recess and re-adjourn at. Okay, we are back, resuming the meeting. For any folks watching, we're having some video difficulties from the chamber's video system, but audio should still be working and recording. So Denise, can I just ask you to raise your hand if you can still hear us? Okay, I see that. Perfect. All right, so we're good. Okay, so we'll continue on with item A7. City Attorney Kylie Fennell is here to present ordinance adding chapter 9.90 to the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled, quote, controlled substances, unquote.
Thank you. So this is an item that came out of the council retreat, and that I was tasked. Oh, there's the video. Oh, it went away. Sorry. With bringing to a study session. And so at the retreat, it showed up on the agenda to discuss the Marysville ordinance. And there was a discussion and it seemed like there was a consensus to at least get an ordinance together. And so that's what you have in front of you. This was also discussed at public safety last week. After that, I did learn some things from, following up on some of the things that were raised at public safety. One, that Marysville was not the first city in Washington to enact this. They just maybe got the most publicity. But Kent had actually done it a few months before. I reached out to their city attorneys, and these aren't, this is the numbers that they gave me without really digging into their data, but that Marysville had about, I think, 39 referrals in the first month, and Kent had 17 since September. So a difference there, of course. And otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions, but what it was prepared was based on Marysville ordinance, which is what you guys asked for. So there it is.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think I'll summarize. There was just an interest in council and getting the facts on the table and learning more about this and us getting up to speed.
Yeah, and it's obviously
on the
going to have an
subject.
impact on police, prosecution, and courts. And so Court Administrator Johnson, still present, Chief Wolf was at Public Safety and shared some of his thoughts with the council members that were there. And with prosecution, you know, we're kind of in the middle of those two, right? Because it comes from the police to us. You know? And so it's hard, I think, gonna be hard to gauge like exactly how many referrals or how many arrests or whatever you want to say would be generated if this was passed. The considerations, of course, are that there's going to be legislation at the state level coming out probably soon. The Blake fix that we're currently operating under controlled substance law at the state level expires in July. I believe the last time I checked with AWC, there were 3 bills that have been introduced. But who knows? Maybe you guys will find out next week which ones are the front runners or whatnot. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or whatever. Get more information or take direction from you, however you want to go with this.
Perfect. No, thank you so much, Attorney Fennell. Let's go to Jennifer first, since I know you chaired the Public Safety Committee meeting last week.
Yes, although I am now the vice chair and our wonderful chair is Denise Fry now. But she will be at the next one, but she wasn't able to make it to this one. And so just some things for us to consider. I feel like you probably know my personal opinion about it, but of course, you know, we're a group. So I'm just going to kind of summarize some things from our Public Safety Committee that we discussed on this issue. One, when we talked to Chief Wolf, he asked Ms. Johnson about would we be overwhelming you with this? And I'm going to let her speak for herself on that issue. And so I just would like to hear your comments on the capacity, since we have a brand new behavioral court program. We have 2 people maybe that have been in it so far.
Yes.
If this were to become code, how would that impact the court system?
Well, just with the conversation that we had with the chief last week in regards to the amount of contacts, I mean, 500 contacts, and in talking to him, it didn't sound like those were just contacts of, hey, how are you doing? It was an actual, something was happening at that time. That's a huge impact for the court. And so I guess our request would be, if you are planning on going down this road, please think about us as we are going to need some type of help to be able to bring staff on board. And that takes time. We can work as fast as we can, but those are the things that we have to think about. And if that's going to add additional court time, I can't imagine that it wouldn't. Even if you had an additional 100 cases get added a year, that's court time. That's clerk time. Those are things that I would ask that the council think about if you are planning on moving forward. And so we would definitely be coming back to you and asking for additional resources
Right.
to cover that. So please.
And I think Chief Wolf brought up, and I'll let him speak for himself next week if he attends, but he brought up just a valid point that he feels like it's almost like putting it on the municipality is almost like an unfunded mandate, but
Yes.
unofficially, you know?
Yes.
So that that the state needs to pay for this. The state needs to provide the funding. And once they have the legislation in place, the hope is that funding would accompany that, or opportunities for additional funding to provide those support services. I'll let him speak for himself next week if he comes. So what I appreciated too about that meeting is that Ms. Fennell wanted to do additional outreach. And one of the organizations that you talked about was Kitsap County Drug Court alumni. And I do have a person that we can connect with for that to get feedback from that group. I think that that's a very relevant group thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. That's a very relevant group that we should be getting feedback from because they're people who have participated in the diversion program, people directly impacted by drug laws, right? And then also, I don't know the mechanism that we would use other than public comment to get feedback from business owners and residents. Do we have an idea for that, or would we just use the public comment as a mechanism in our meeting?
however you guys want to do it, it's up to you. So the suggestion that I had was, though, since it is a criminal law, and I think we should really do this on all of them, is that when we're passing new code, that we share it with the local bar association so that they can have comments on it, that might even head off in some circumstances if someone thinks that it is preempted or unconstitutional or something like that. I don't see that issue, but some people might, lawyers will sometimes just type away, get all kinds of stuff. And then also in this one, as you said, I thought that the Drug Court Alumni Association would be good, but I didn't want to do that yet because we don't accept comments here anyway. And I also wasn't even sure if it would leave this meeting. I don't know what you guys are doing. So happy to send, what I would probably do is send a link to our packet, and if it gets included for a council packet, like this ordinance, it'll have the same agenda bell, it'll have the ordinance. And then instead of going just through our regular distributions, then I would probably just work with Lori to send it to, maybe like add some emails to that list for this item.
And another consideration too, as we decide if we want to move this forward, is the idea that and I want you to talk to Chief Wolf once again about this, but the idea of training and then retraining a new policy. So if the state is going to have a fix for a Blake fix by the end of session, then, and we have a code in place that the police are currently being trained on, they'll have to be retrained again. And we know how labor intensive that can be sometimes, how information flowing through, and then you're changing the information, how that can create a source of frustration. That's all that I want to comment on that. I'm gonna go ahead and defer to my colleagues for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think all of these comments by Vice President Chamberlain are well taken, and we should be determining what we need to be doing as a community. We obviously have a very big drug problem. We have a poverty problem. We have a housing problem. We have a mental health crisis in this country, and they're all very much linked. And Administrator Johnson, I think you're absolutely correct that we shouldn't be sending an unfunded mandate to the court's way. We should be thinking about it holistically. My main question is, one, I know that code ultimately gets interpreted by the courts, who have the final say on the interpretive aspect of it, but there's also discretion. There's police officer discretion, there's prosecutorial discretion. So Attorney Denol, can you tell me on subsection B, when it's defining terms and it says use means any effort taken into furtherance of an attempt to inject, ingest, inhale, and otherwise introduce a controlled substance into the human body. The way I read this, and I would assume a court would interpret this, and I would assume police officers and prosecutors would interpret this, is that it's actually the act of introducing the substance into the body, differentiated from being in public under the influence of the controlled.
Here, if that isn't clear to everyone.
Can you repeat that
Yeah,
for the microphone?
It is absolutely the act. It's not, this is not possession. Possession would be preempted.
Or under the influence, right? If they no longer possess, it's actually in their body.
Right, no, this is with this, the situation I think that Chief Wolf discussed with, he shared something that happened when he was on bike patrol, and that was coming upon someone who had a needle in their arm, and like had a conversation at like while they were injecting themselves with a controlled substance, and that that is alarming to people, and to see that in public, and they often call the police, and they currently really don't. That's actually, there's nothing that really prohibits that. It is something under our state law. You can, if they have, you could give them a pamphlet, or that, that contact under possession, because obviously if you're using, you're also possessing, but if you're possessing, you're not necessarily using. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you. And then my next question is, you know, as we wait for the state legislature to respond to the court's decisions, you know, I think it's important that cities take their own actions to figure it out. I think I said this in study session, just like states are laboratories of democracy for the federal government, I think cities can be laboratories of democracy for the state government to figure out what works to fix public policy problems. Would we just be able, if we did move as a body and felt that we needed to, you know, move forward with this to address some of the issues that we've been seeing in our community, it would be fine for us to change the effective date from 10 days to 6 months from now, right? If we needed to delay to figure out, you know, how we would be funding it, how we would be, how the state legislature would be taking off, we can delay its
Yes,
implementation.
you can write into the ordinance a later effective date.
Thank you so much. That's all.
Well, I can no longer hear you, but can you hear me? Okay, all right. I was initially pretty supportive of this, as you may remember at study session, but I didn't understand how it had been brought up. I had assumed mistakenly that it had come through Chief Wolf or you know, the city attorney. And for all the reasons that have been discussed since then and tonight, yeah, I'd really hate to see this go any further right now with the state really working on this. If we wanted to, I know there was interest in advocating for legislation earlier. Could we, would it be possible for us to analyze the legislation that's in there now and see if we can support it?
All right, let's see this. There we go. I think we had one mic battery die. So apologies, Denise. So I might suggest maybe we can, as a council, flesh out the facts of what we have before us and kind of ask questions on that. And then I can lead a discussion at the end of how we want to move this forward with a couple options we have. I'm sorry, whether or not to move it forward, and if we do, in what manner, I should say. Okay. But appreciate it.
I just wanted to clarify with everybody, because I'm not there with you, that you know, whatever support I had shown earlier, I was not feeling so supportive anymore.
Appreciate that. Eric.
Several points I'd like to bring up. One is, I may have been the instigator of this. I don't know if anyone else had this on their agenda for the council retreat, but I did. And I was struck by the news report. I think it was on Como, Marysville. In particular, a police officer who expressed how grateful he was to have this tool in Marysville because the current system is broken. You can go up to someone that is injecting morphine, or unbeknownst to them, they're injecting morphine laced with fentanyl and killing themselves. And he's standing there helpless because he can't do anything other than saying, hey, by the way, you know, there's a program for you if you want it. And this actually gave him a tool to be able to cite him and say, now you got to, and as Chief Wolf said, and I don't know what the exact statistic was, but the Navigator program had something like 550 referrals and one person took them up on it. These people are dying, and your inaction, our inaction has the side effect of killing people when we should be trying to push them into the system. And I don't care what it costs. We should be helping these people out. And until we got handcuffed by this judicial decision, I do not have confidence that our legislature is going to pick from various things. They may do nothing, and then we still have people dying. So I really think we need to send a message to the legislature that this is what works. This is what we're doing. And we need a state law to make this uniform across the state. This is frustrating to me. The way I read this, drinking alcohol in a park is against the law. Smoking marijuana, even though that's a legal drug under the state law, smoking marijuana in a park is against the law. So the officer has the discretion. And this is merely gives you discretion, doesn't mean it's automatic. Officer, you know what, if the court is overburdened with cases, the police force can say, okay, hey, we got to hold back on writing these tickets because they're overloaded with cases. So right now you can write a ticket for open container drinking, should say, not just, and smoking marijuana, but shooting whatever, doing crack cocaine or whatever is okay. Really? No, I can't, no, the answer is no, it's not okay.
Michael.
So I wasn't privy to the opening of this topic, but it was illegal, right? Like pre-Blake decision. Okay, so so the part of it is the referral, right? But it was illegal before, so it's to me almost seems like a housekeeping thing. We had something that was illegal that we thought should have been illegal. Was no longer. Go ahead. If I'm not going the wrong way.
I just wanted to point out one issue. So prior to Blake, use always encompassed possession, right? That's what I was just saying. Those were felonies that were prosecuted in Port Orchard and Superior Court. And when the Blake decision happened, they weren't being prosecuted anywhere because it was, unconstitutional. And so what Administrator Johnson and what Chief Wolf were saying is that, we can't make something a felony. We can only make things misdemeanors at the municipal code level. And so it puts that burden for prosecution and incarceration and supervision and defense services, right? And court services from a state level, a felony level to a misdemeanor level that's handled in the municipal court. So that's that shifting. And so while it was illegal 2 years ago, it wasn't prosecuted in our municipal court 2 years ago.
Okay, that's great, because that's kind of what I was, the concern was. But it could be, even if this is just a stopgap to allow law enforcement to have that tool until maybe the state does a correction, because it could be a while, as we learned their big focuses, budget and stuff. I don't know, the struggle or the con for me is like, are we just making it tougher to even be unhoused or more illegal to be unhoused? I think too, but I guess technically it's illegal to do this stuff in private too. Well, possession, I guess, it's an odd thing, but there's concerns of I know businesses, especially in our downtown, with finding folks, and then folks don't feel safe, family, so it's definitely a trade-off on what we do, but I wouldn't want to come upon it, and I wouldn't know what to do, and then to find out if I called somebody, no one's gonna offer aid or assistance or prevent it. So anyways, I again kind of new to this conversation, but in general I feel like it seems like something we should pursue.
I'll take my turn, then we'll do a second round with folks.
Anna hasn't gone.
Yep, thank you for correcting me. Yes, Anna, sorry, I have a little counter while I try and keep track. I didn't look. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the use in public was illegal in 2019, that's correct? Okay, so,
So sorry if Attorney Finelli, microphone again. Thank you.
Yes.
so Eric, Michael, you will possibly remember this, study session in 2019 where a young bicycle officer stood up and was talking about his experience in working with people on the street in downtown. Pardon me. He had a brother who had gone down that hole, and had been lost. He was still alive. And it was his mission to like go among people and say, I have a chance to bring you to drug court and you have a chance to turn your life around. And some of them, like a miracle would happen and just be one rehab and they were fine. But for most people, it was just like quitting anything. They'd keep, going back and he'd keep going, you can do it, you can get back on. And he was really thrilled about how many people he had been able to recall to life. This is a little personal for me, obviously. And I think about there's like a house in my district that's surrounded by cars where people are using in their cars. And there's nothing that can be done about it. They could just expire in their cars because we don't know what's coming down the pike as far as the drugs that are happening. I don't think this should be a 6 months out. I think that it's not that difficult a training. I heard the other points, but it's not that difficult a training to say, if they're using, you can arrest them, or offer them a referral. That's not a complex training. And it's something that most officers working for the Bremerton Police Department are accustomed to, they did it in the past. I'm not really thinking so much about how it'll make downtown prettier or anything like that. I'm thinking it would be really nice if people did not die needlessly. There just is enough of that happening. I truly understand your concerns, Administrator Jennifer. Yeah. But we have to step up here, in my opinion. That's it.
Thank you, Anna. So my thoughts are, I think this is where everyone's at, but I'll just speak for me personally, that I see this, I do not want to pass something that's just penalizing people to penalize them, right? What I thought I heard in the retreat from the chief at the time, and I haven't watched obviously don't attend the public safety briefings. Another case we'll have to hear from him directly, but what I heard at the retreat was that this was a tool to basically have people get help. And so I view it through that lens, that if this is a tool that helps people and doesn't just penalize them, but actually gets them into rehab and gets them treatment and gets, lives back on track, that's the reason I would consider it. And I think I heard back then as well that if somebody was arrested on this misdemeanor, Attorney Fennell, correct me on the process, but that person would be referred to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor could first decide whether or not to basically press charges or proceed with prosecution.
Right, we would make a decision on what every person who's charged is reviewed by our office and whether we go forward or not.
Okay. So the prosecutor would have discretion, and assuming, as I think everyone in the current employment is, if the courts were tied up, if there was no drug programs or diversion possible, they could decide not to prosecute. It'd be in their discretion in that case.
Sure, and so keep in mind though that, and this is just big picture thing, people have to want to engage in therapeutic court. They have to want to engage in treatment and serve it. one of the differences between this being in a municipal court versus being in Superior Court is that in Superior Court, we're looking at in the past, whenever before the Blake decision, people could often, depending on their criminal history, could be looking at significant sentences that were motivating to do something to avoid being away from your kids that long, or just, being in prison that long. And so, a gross misdemeanor goes up to a year in jail. And this is, I think, contemplated to be a misdemeanor, which means it would cap out at 90 days. It is quite possible that people will not be motivated. And this even really goes for the therapeutic court program. People have to choose to participate, and that because of the lower sentences at the municipal court level, some people just aren't motivated. They would rather be guilty and have a sentence imposed on them and continue about their life and not have to meet with the judge and a prosecutor every day of the week. So I just wanted to let you know,
I
this is
appreciate the
not-
process.
you make this illegal, it's not going to be that someone's looking at the 0 to, the sentence ranges that people were looking at that motivated some of those success stories that you were talking about that make people want to go to drug court.
Okay. So, gotcha. So if someone gets charged, prosecutor can decide whether or not to prosecute. If they do, then it goes to the court, then it goes before the judge. And the judge, I'm asking Administrator Johnson, the judge can then decide basically the sentencing. Sorry.
People have a lot of rights when they get charged
Yeah.
with a crime, and the judge and the prosecutor don't get to decide those for them. And so they could choose to plead guilty. Let's say if they got arrested on a Friday
Mhm.
and they're looking at a sentence recommendation of 15 days in jail, something like that, right? They could say, fine, I'm going to sit this out. I'm going to get a third off. I'm going to do 10 days. I'm going to be out, and I'm not going to have to go to Bremerton Municipal Court every Tuesday at 10. So those just that, that they can plead guilty. They could say, no, I think this is a stupid law, or I think maybe it's going to get preempted or something. I'm going to set this for trial. I'm going to kind of try to kick it down the road a little bit and see what happens. They could say, so we're going to appoint them attorneys. It's not going to be that they show up to court and where the judge says you have to go to treatment, the Monday afterwards. They're going to have options that they can exercise, and it might not be the ones that you think that they should.
Cool. No, thank you for explaining that. Okay, and then let's say they plead guilty, judge's discretion on sentencing and treatment. And so if there are no treatment, let's say there's no treatment available, the resources aren't there, the judge could then, if they had pled guilty and there was a sentencing, could basically say, I'm going to give you the minimum sentence because there are no diversion programs available.
Correct. And I
Okay.
mean, the other thing is too, like Kylie, Ms. Reynolds just said, if it's a 90-day, it's a misdemeanor. So, they get booked in on a Friday night. Okay, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, they get heard. That's already 4 days, and they're getting an offer of 15 days, plus credit. They're out in a few days. It's just things you need to think about. And the fact that, yes, the city attorney's office can have a discretion on whether they're going to file or not, but those people are still getting booked into the jail. So we still need to process them that Monday morning or every day that they're booked. If it's a decline, okay, we're going to release. It's still paperwork, still processes that the court has to do on our end.
No, thank you. And I really appreciate just getting an mutual understanding and the facts of out there. Last question before we go around to, so currently, do you have the rate on if like public intoxication, if somebody's drinking beer down the street and they get cited, this process is in place for them currently or no?
That's an infraction.
Okay,
So this is a crime. they're processed differently. When you get cited with an infraction, you get handed a piece of paper. Everyone's gotten a ticket. That's the same process for marijuana and any sort
Okay,
of
so
like
this would
speeding.
escalate our current rules on alcohol and marijuana as
Right.
well, or
Well,
no?
no, it is higher. So they're
Okay.
both all illegal. I mean, or right now, marijuana, those are citable offenses. They are not arrestable crimes. This is an arrestable offense. It would be a misdemeanor,
I'm
similar to like.
Sorry, there's some
Similar to
distraction
like-
here. Restate that again on, is this bringing substances besides alcohol and marijuana to the same level that we currently have alcohol and marijuana?
No, it's
Okay.
one above.
Okay,
So if you think of like an infraction as like the lowest level, then misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, felony, and you can even do A, B, and C felonies. But, well, not you can't. The legislature, but what I mean is like right now, alcohol and marijuana use in public is an infraction. This is a misdemeanor. And so on infractions, you don't get booked into the jail, you get issued a piece of paper and you come to the court and you can pay it or contest it or, but for an arrestable offense, they could actually be put under arrest and taken to the jail and booked in, and then they would be seen by the judge the following judicial day or within 2 days.
okay, thank you for clearing that up. It's very helpful. All right, let's go around to, and I've seen Quinn's, oh, I'm sorry, well, Denise did speak on this already, so, but her hand is up and it's been up for a while. Sounds like, all right, so Denise, then Quinn, then we'll keep going. Then on.
Just trying to understand the rules. So Kylie, excuse me, Attorney Fennell. The current pieces of legislation that are being considered at the state level, are those, would those be considered felonies then?
I have not reviewed all of the bills that have been introduced. At the current, the current piece of legislation, possession is not a felony. It's a misdemeanor, which is another one of those things where it went from being something that was handled in Superior Court to being something that's handled in a municipal or district court. And so if the legislature, I mean, it's certainly within their capability to do that. I don't know. I don't think any of the current bills are doing that, at least probably. I mean,
But we're not talking really about possession, are we? Aren't we mostly focusing on the active use?
This particular ordinance is focusing on use. The legislature is focusing on possession, which includes
Okay,
use, because that's what the Blake decision dealt with, was the possession of controlled substance. And so that's what they're looking at. It's likely to encompass, or it might not encompass, I guess I should say that. It could be that they just don't address use, right? And then if we had something on the books that made use criminal, then it wouldn't end up being preempted and we could continue on with having it. If they specifically address use, then we might have to come back to this and repeal it. And you saw, I mean, last year we did a whole round of repealing things and codifying things, and you've seen that process work. So I don't know what they're currently looking at, though. I haven't reviewed all the bills.
and then just lastly, I really think Chief Wolf needs to be a part of this conversation, and I value his insight and knowledge of impact and its value as a tool. And I'd really appreciate his participation in the conversation.
Quinn.
Yeah, every time somebody speaks, I get swayed in one direction or the other, to be honest. Councilmember Fry's comments really resonate with me, because at the joint planning session, I also kind of felt like it was percolating up from police, and police was asking for this. During public safety, my read was we may not have the manpower to do this if you pass it. So I'm meeting with Chief Wolf on Friday. I'm having lunch with them, and I'm happy to report back in an informational way of clarifying that. And I'll make sure whatever communication I send out to council is approved by him. So I'm understanding that position correctly. Because Councilmember Fry, I think you're correct and we really needing to understand that. In addition, I think Councilmember Chamberlain's points are really well taken. And what I keep going back to are like policy papers that I wrote about collateral consequences, right? Like it's not just, this is a touchstone for getting folks help that need help and ensuring that they don't pass, which is really the point of this, right? But we do need to be really thoughtful about collateral consequences. Is this going to affect, ability to get affordable housing, SNAP benefits, things like that? I know that generally it was mostly felonies that the federal government looked at, but I might like maybe a quick, email memo from legal, letting us know, not just what are the effects of being incarcerated, but having that on their record moving forward so that we can really think about, the balance of all the interests here. But for me personally, once I get those questions answered and a little bit more input from other stakeholders, which I think have been suggested, Councilmember Mockler's statements really, I feel like swayed me the most in that, I've dealt with people in my life with addiction, people that were very close to death. And I, think about how many times I've seen interaction with the law actually turn into kind of a wake up moment. And I also think about, and I think I mentioned this at the retreat, the 20 under 40, where I always forget her name, but Sarah Borden said that the first time in her life that she was sober was the time that she was arrested. And, 15 days of sobriety, 90 days of sobriety might just be enough for somebody to kind of seek the help that they need. So I'm conflicted. I think it's a lot of nuanced points. But I will report back to council after talking with Chief Wolf on Friday.
I saw Anna's hand up before, so Anna, please go ahead.
So you were making very good points about 15 days or even just 3 months, as opposed to the much longer sentences for felony. But carrying forward from Quinn's words, it's and quoting the young bicycle cop again, bicycle officer again, it's, do you want to go cold turkey or do you want to go through, a process that will be much less painful? And that swayed many people. I hadn't heard Sarah Borden's words, but that is also quite powerful. That's it.
Appreciate it. I think I saw Eric, your hand. Oh, and then Michael and Jennifer. Sorry, Eric.
First recommendation is we have another study session. We don't put this on the agenda next week. There's too many unanswered questions. I would like to hear from Chief Wolf and see if we have his support for this, because it has to go from leadership on down to the police force. My thought was enacting this law gave the police force support in doing their job instead of the frustration, which I understood they were experiencing through the Marysville experience. If Bremerton's unique and they're not experiencing this frustration, okay, I think it's universal, but I want to give him the opportunity, if he's against this, to explain why, so his police officers understand why we're not passing an ordinance similar to Marysville or Kent. So we're not inventing the wheel. If we pass this, we are taking something that 2 municipalities, to the best of our knowledge, already have in place. So some type of testimony or input from those municipalities on their success of their program so far would be beneficial for us in a study session. The other thing is, thankfully, not addicted to drugs and I've never been addicted to drugs. But I gotta believe if you are in an environment where you can't take drugs for 15 days or up to 90 days, it's gonna be one hell of an experience. But also maybe then your mind will be clear enough to say, you know what, I need help, versus you're on the street and you're on, on whatever your drug of choice is, and you just say, I don't want help. I just want to give these people a chance. So again, I'm willing. I'd like to hear from all aspects, and if we can get the message out for when this does go on the agenda, hopefully we can get testimony from all viewpoints and make our decision from there, an informed decision. And I'm hopeful that from this point forward, council doesn't say, I'm against this, I'm for this. We just all listen and throw our viewpoints out, and we'll wait until we hear all the testimony and make our decision then. So, thank you.
All right, Jennifer, then Michael.
Okay, so the public safety hat is off from the committee. I'm just gonna speak freely because I just really want you in the next couple weeks. I agree with Councilmember Younger that we should put it off to another study session. I want you to evaluate your biases and think about it, because if you're under some delusion that you think that this is gonna save everybody, it's not. I've witnessed, we had a roommate back in 2002, who we saved his life from an overdose, a heroin overdose. I was the one, I woke up early, I heard a noise, I went down there and he was dying. And he faced some legal ramifications. But he continued to use. He ended up at a party, falling off a balcony and getting brain damage. Okay. And I just need to issue a trigger warning that I'm going to just mention suicide. I'm going to mention some other maybe triggering things for just a moment, but I'll try to be brief. My uncle was indigent. He lived in the woods sometimes, and sometimes he was on ranches that offered treatment services and so on. And he had periods of time where he was afforded sobriety, where he was afforded that time. He eventually, even with all the benefits that he had, relapsed and took his life. Time after time, people can have those moments of clarity, that time in sobriety, that time being clean, and they will go out and they will die. But sometimes people will be ready to accept the help. But it does not always come. It rarely comes with legal intervention. People will continue to go out until they are ready to get help. And so I just want you to just look at statistics. I want you to be very mindful about if you are under this premise that criminalizing drug use will help people, or if it really is that you want to criminalize this behavior because it is antisocial and you want to eliminate this behavior from your community for the sake of another group. And you know where I come from. You know, I come from a place of recovery myself, which I'm technically not supposed to be public about, but it's not a secret. And I just want you to don't come without the facts of what legal intervention does to people. We criminalize more people in this country than any other developed country. Why are we giving another tool? Let's make it the same as let's have other options, and let's hear from other people involved. And let's be real with your intention to enact a new law. Is it to eliminate the behavior, or is it to try to get people help? That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Michael.
Actually, Jennifer pretty much just summed up what I was going to say is, and I'll just kind of in my own words say the last part too, is like, what's the goal here, or what's the problem here that we're trying to fix? Because I kind of started this with one idea and I've kind of lost it along the way, so there are problems connected to the sort of public use, but are we, is it an intervention point? Is it to clean the streets so that shoppers feel safer? You know, like, so I think we have to be clear on what we're trying to do here. So I appreciate what Jennifer just said.
Well, thank you. So I see, yes, Mayor.
This might help, and it's not, chief needs to be here to speak to answer
Yes.
specific questions, but I am working with Kitsap County. And they do have a program where the first interaction in certain circumstances, unless there's a crime actually being committed, is going to be, it comes from a case management perspective with a resource guide and options and some skills with communicating with folks, you know, who might be homeless or, you know, there's a lot of association with drug use, untreated mental illness and homelessness. So there's a couple between the county and a nonprofit. I'll share it with you when I get some results. And so this will be,
Yeah, let me say a lot, just any specifics, just not.
yeah,
relevant
you'll,
to the evening, you can definitely email us
because
anytime.
most of this doesn't work in isolation. You actually have to, I mean, I'm not going to give you advice on this.
Right, please, yeah.
Yeah. So you can consider that there'll be some other programs out there to help folks who are addicted. They don't always accept, as Counselor Chamberlain said the first time, but if there's multiple times where then maybe one of them sticks, and that's going to be coming. I don't know if that helps with your decision or not. I'll let you decide.
All right, no, appreciated. So I think I see a couple paths that we should choose from here. Let me just lay them out, and I think I see kind of a consensus, but just to put them all out there, I could put it on general business next week with an action attached, and I'm seeing a bunch of head nods, no, as I expect. Perfect. Keep giving those head nods or not. We could put it on general business for input only, as we've done in the past, to get public input. We could just postpone this to another study session to hear from the chief and from other folks and keep gathering more data. And if we did that, that study session could either be, 2 weeks from now, or it could be after the legislative session to see how things shake out. And the final option I see, and this can go hand in hand with having a later study session, is we could, as a council, decide to send a letter, or any council members can on their own, to the legislature urging them to take, some sort of action as a parallel path. So head nods on another study session in the future at some point. Is that okay? Seeing head nods there. So we'll do that, and then thumbs up on 2 weeks from now to continue the discussion versus wait till after the legislator. Okay, I'm seeing we should keep talking about this. All right. So why don't we postpone this not postpone, but we'll put it on study session for 2 weeks from now. See if we can get the chief here. And we can all go and do some more research and see if there's anybody else who wants at the table to get the right data and input. And yeah, Attorney Fennell, please weigh in.
All right, so I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what my assignment
Sure.
is. I think Quinn wanted me to look into potential collateral consequences that might result because this is a drug conviction. And it sounds like there's an invitation being extended to the police chief to provide the position of the police department on this proposal and attend at the next study session.
Yep.
Yes.
Could we get some specific questions you might ask so the chief and I can work together to address police position on this? I mean, that's.
So I think the council's questions, let's just get it right here, was basically, do you have the staff currently to enforce this if enacted, or would you in the future? Is this a tool that you would use if enacted in order to basically help people get treatment? And council, help me out if there are any other specific questions, but basically, do you view this as a net benefit to the city, or do you not from the position of law enforcement? Do you have another question? Yeah.
How do you plan to fund it?
Okay. think we got a path forward. All right. Oh, nope, sorry. Nope, go ahead.
There was another question, and that is the experience of the two municipalities that have already had this in place. What has there been? And I don't mind if our attorney just reaches out to their,
I already have, so I can share that. I thought I said that at the outset. I'm sorry.
with their actual, the statistics and all that. I,
39 referrals for Marysville since it was enacted in December. I talked to their city attorney overall. They seem fairly pleased. There have been 17, I think, referrals in Kent since September, so they've had longer but fewer. Of the 17, I think the prosecution was moving forward with 12.
Okay.
so
maybe
if
we
we
can
could
get
have
that in.
something in written form.
Yeah.
So we can understand how many went for prosecution, how many went to referral.
Well, the referral is from the police to prosecution.
Okay, no, so I'm talking about then referrals that, okay, they go to the drug court, to the drug,
Oh.
versus they go to jail.
I can try to get that information. It might be too soon because the life of a case, like for an out of custody person, the shorter, I mean, they've got 90-day clock at the outset and it's often extended. And so like for the people in Marysville, if they appeared, they might not have even had a court appearance yet. And so we're probably not going to get stats from them because I think went into effect in December. So I can try.
So I think, yeah, whatever information you're able to get to put in the study session packet for 2 weeks from now would be fantastic.
Ally,
Okay.
maybe you and you can ask some more questions about what type of formal endorsement did they need from their police chief?
Sure, and I think, I was looking on Marysville website, when I was speaking to the city attorney, he mentioned it, I think it was included in their mayor's, state of the city address, and I looked online, it's actually not written, it's a video, I haven't watched it, 'cause I'm sitting here, but there might be more information if anyone wants to check that out, I'll be checking it out, but if you look up like Marysville Mayor, State of the City, it's a YouTube link on their website, and I think it's addressed in there.
It's completely up to the mayor and the police chief, but I wouldn't mind hearing from a street patrolman has his feet on the ground. As to what he's seeing out there.
No, I think that's a fair point. Obviously up to the mayor to direct the chief and the chief to direct his employees, but I would personally love to hear as well, to hear firsthand experience, cases where something like this may help, cases where it may not, and to see how prevalent those cases are. Okay, so with that, I think we got clear path forward. We'll have this on study session 2 weeks from now. We'll extend an invite to the police chief and ask if you would be okay allowing a street patrolman to be here as well. And I just thank everybody for this is a difficult topic and conversation, and I really appreciate everybody for just focusing on getting the facts out there. So with that, propose we do general council business up until the resuming the retreat item, and look at taking a break when we finish that. So with that, we'll move on to general council business, and I'd like to invite Public Safety Committee Vice Chair Jennifer Chamberlin to provide a summary of highlights from the last meeting held on February 2nd.
Well, I feel like this entire study session has been about the public safety meeting, so I'm not gonna go over all that y'all already heard. Couple things, so we don't exactly know yet. I guess we're unclear in public safety as to where the funds are for the bathroom. So it was, our line item about a bathroom. Is it in the public works budget? Is it in the general fund? I brought it up and there was some discussion that maybe it was in public works because it's considered facilities. And so we can't really move on talking about that item there if it's not our department. So that's where we're at with that. So we need to get clarification on that. I'm not sure who can follow up with me on that.
Are you able to reach out to Director Riley to
Yes,
answer?
I will
Okay.
do that.
Thank you.
What's the
And then,
question? We have a program set up.
The $10,000 that was
Okay.
added by council for related to downtown restroom facilities.
Yeah.
Which specific part of city budget is that in?
Oh, you just need that? Okay.
so we know which committee to talk about it in because what council had decided is that they were we were gonna refer it to public safety. But that may not be the most appropriate, or is it the most appropriate?
Well, for us, we were gonna bring it to the full council, because there wasn't any one committee, and there's some things that we need to run by you, the feedback we're getting from the community. And so,
And you're talking about the homeless community as well, the impacted community, or, okay. So I'm gonna move
yeah,
on to the
let's-
next thing, which is
Perfect.
public safety, the levy. So next, public safety meeting, we're gonna talk about the levy of the EMT and police levy, emergency services levy. That's really it. But we need to, when we do talk about it finally at our, study session, we'll need to probably move a little fast because filing week will be coming up right around the corner. So that's it. Thank
Okay,
you.
gotcha. And that's the next study session 2 weeks from now.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so it'll come on the 22nd
22nd.
study session?
Okay, excellent. Appreciate that briefing. I don't know, I'd like to invite any other council members that attended regional or other committee boards to brief on that committee board. Anna?
The Kitsap Transit Board, you've all had a chance to read the mayor's message, and I'm just, mayor, I've only read it 1.5 times. But I think that you omitted the smallest of facts, which made my heart sing. But basically, there's going to be on-demand Sunday service in Bremerton, in case you haven't had a chance to read the mayor's email. Yay. It will run along trunk route, routed route 217. So basically it'll go from the Ferry Building up Warren, up Wheaton, and, head for Silverdale. There will also be 4 on-demand vehicles. They weren't specified. 217 was chosen because I immediately went, why not West Bremerton? And the reason that 217 was chosen is that it has very, very heavy demand Monday through Saturday. So they figured probably Sunday too. It's a pretty straightforward thing. If you want to talk about it with your constituents, it's going to start in August. It'll have, even the on-demand routes will have routes, and you just call and go, I want to be on the 10 a.m. route or the 11 a.m. route, so forth and so on. It's phasing in slowly with Bainbridge the last, which was a source of sadness to the counselor from Bainbridge Island as it interfered with equity, because the workforce would not be able to get to Bainbridge Island on a Sunday.
All right, thank you for that briefing. Any other regional committees folks have attended that want to brief out on? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the continued discussion on the joint planning session. How are folks doing? Are we good to maybe go for half an hour, then take a break, or do you want to take one now? But, yes. So what I would goal for tonight, although realizing it is getting close to 8, we've been at it for a couple hours. This long study session was to just continue the ranking where we left off at the retreat. If we're able to get through it quickly and then basically call it a good stop there. If we can get to that ranking, then and you should have printouts and email I sent earlier in the week. So what I did was, with the ranking that we had from the retreat, we got through 4 of the 8 kind of big topics. I basically took the ones that you saw the spreadsheet here. So just comparing importance versus the difficulty, the ones that flowed to the top of high importance, low difficulty, and then in the order that happened, to get a draft here. And so no secret sauce. It's literally this third column, one minus the other. And this is just to get us to a cohesive draft that we can stare at. And then in a future study session go, oh, why'd that one end up at the top? I don't like it. Move it down here. I don't like that at all. Let's strike it and get consensus on items. So it's really just to get a placeholder, complete draft, but not final. So if we're able to finish ranking real quickly tonight, we can basically fill this out as a draft. And then at subsequent study session, dig into the meat and hopefully get something we got finalized. So any questions on that?
Process question, Mr. President. Is this something that council can do can we say, we want to prioritize X? Without seeking additional funding for it. For example, currently, the Public Works is prioritizing sidewalks to fill the gaps, which is a very sensible thing. Can council, and I'm truly asking because I don't know the answer, can council say, we want to prioritize sidewalks, I don't know, around parks and schools? Is this something that council can do?
Our goal with this is to basically get this form filled out. Get the words on this paper with our golden priorities that we all appreciate. And once that's finalized, then it's working with the mayor and administration to enact those goals and priorities. Unless, can we specifically direct?
I'm so
well,
sorry, I forgot my
There has
microphone.
to be budget in place. There has to be.
If, for example, sidewalks are being built to the tune of $6 million a year, let's imagine. Can we say, we want those $6 million worth of sidewalks to be done near parks and schools? Is that something council can determine? And I'm asking because I don't know the answer.
We can pass ordinances, we can update budget. So if there was an ordinance that's really specified that wanted to be drafted, possibly. Mayor, I don't know if you want to give an answer to this. Sorry, I saw your lights on. But I also don't want to distract from the goal of getting this complete so that we have this to look at the rest of the year when we draft ordinances, when we get to budget season. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, it makes sense. It's just, it's something that occurred to me between the retreat and now, and
Gotcha.
I'm bringing it up as a meta question, I suppose, but it's, can council, for example, say parks should prioritize large, flat, grassy areas?
We can put it in here. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It will hopefully be a common blueprint for us to move on and to, if it's an action item to pass an ordinance to give direction to the administration. Yeah. So I'd say let's move on. Any questions on just getting this complete for now? Same as we did last year. I'm just using a separate method, but we're getting to the same, a similar end result project that council puts out every year. But I propose to go ahead with the rankings and fly through here. If it gets late, an option 2 is if you want to submit stuff remotely, numbers, we can do that. But I would just like to move on, and you got the printouts in front of you. So where we last left off was getting to affordable housing items. And we had a couple, and can I steal a pen from someone? Thank you, Lori. I was gonna do a computer, but since everyone has a printout, I think it's just as easy to do this. Okay, so our first item, in fact, what I'm gonna do, let's go down to the black items, the ones that were newly listed for this year. Start with those, then come back up to the blue ones. So we have an item to identify funding for community organizations to develop more affordable housing. Unless there's any questions on this, again, I'd like to be quick on just rankings, and get some numbers. So it's under affordable housing, and the first, not the blue item, but the black color. So just quick ranking of council impact. Yep. And
How does council go about identifying or securing funding? True question.
we might direct, we might ask for an upcoming budget to try and put a line item in there maybe. Gonna just give this a affordable housing. I'm gonna give this a 8 on myself. Anybody else want to flash up some numbers?
8.
788. Okay, 8888, 9, 8, and Denise
9.
9. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Mayor, how do you want to handle the administration side? Do you want to give numbers on these? I know there was some hesitancy during retreat. Do you want me to come back to you once council has priorities, or do you want to see if you can give a rough number now? Yeah, identify funding for community organizations to develop more affordable housing. I'd put this in line with the current what we just passed the KCR. Yeah. Oh, thank you, microphone. Appreciate it. Fair enough. What I propose is maybe council, let's just get our numbers on the page, and then I'll reach out to the mayor and get numbers back, as we can. Okay. So, yes, basically it'd be like we did case here. All right, next one, create incentives for ADUs, cottage, duplex, triple, et cetera, missing middle housing development. Oh, this is specifically incentives. So we've allowed it in the code, but this was incentives to help ADUs and duplexes, triplexes, et cetera, get built. So this might be allocating funding towards that effort or reaching out.
It's a 9 for me.
Okay, 9. I'm gonna say 8. I'm sorry, a microphone.
Right, it is getting late for all
Perfect.
of us.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's allowed already seems to be an incentive. That's what Director Spencer was saying.
Yeah, specifically and specifically like, well, everyone could get $5,000 if they start building an ADU. So something like that. It's just very nebulous, but if you have a number. 5. Okay. Michael?
7.
7. Denise?
I'm gonna do 5.
3.
3. I'm missing Quinn. Did I get yours?
Yeah, I said a 9.
You said 9. Thank you. I did 8. Oh, Jennifer. Okay, I'll give her a
Jennifer vote, please.
perfect. I'll leave it the blanks. I can remember to ask her.
I think they're written down for you, President Coughlin.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Some of them. Okay. I'll let her do that. Eliminating the 8-year MFTE and scale 12-year MFTE to Bremerton AMI. This we basically already talked about last year, but as brought forth as a proposal. I'm personally going to give it a 0 because I think we've already hashed this one out.
0. It's gonna give it a 2.
0.
0 Denise, Michael,
I'll do 0.
Anna,
I think it's a 10, but the possibility is 0.
and Jennifer. 9. Perfect. Identify and increase funding for rental assistance and weatherization.
Give that a 10.
Then. Oh, sorry. Yep. Next top of next page. Appreciate it. I'm gonna say myself the 9. Oh, yeah, I can. I need to connect to Zoom. You can share it. Oh, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, sorry. But they can't see it. Oh, much appreciated. Thank you. That'd be great. So IT is going to share the PDF that we're all staring at. Excellent. Appreciate that. So I heard a 10. I'm going to give it a 9 myself. Shout out numbers.
9.
9 Jennifer
9.
and 9
7.
7. Anna. I'm sorry. Harder when it's on the fly. Oh, yeah.
I feel like I need to explain. So historically, this has been $100,000 to $200,000 line item, whereas actually getting people into home ownership has had less emphasis. So I would prefer to put the emphasis on home ownership, get people out of the rental cycle. So given that, I would go 4.
Makes sense. Okay. I'm missing one person. Denise, did you weigh in?
Yes, I did a 9.
Thank you. 10, 9, 4. Oh, there's everybody. Okay. Good. Identify empty city buildings and properties for housing.
10.
10.
I'm gonna go with the 4.
Yeah, 4.
3.
3.
3.
Eric,
6.
6.
Council President, isn't
5.
this the same as, sorry, that
Yeah, so
I
now let's
usually
go
like
back to
double-sided.
blue, which
this
is
is
why I
the same
did the
thing
black
as
first.
surplus
Yeah.
city properties?
Yeah, so now we've done the black one. Let's go back to the blue ones.
Okay.
So I would strike the old item of identifying surplus property for possible affording housing development. I think that's the same wording, but this has more action items on the black wording.
Okay, so we're killing identify surplus property?
Yeah, that's my,
Okay.
I'm just looking for head nods.
Yep.
I don't want to move too fast, but
Do we want to replace?
basically be replaced by the.
Secure additional funding for affordable housing programs? Is that kind of what Eric was saying for identifying increased funding for
Oh,
rentals?
sorry, one second. I just want to make sure I got head nods on striking, identifying the surplus property blue item. Yeah, that overlaps. All right, speak up if you don't like it. Okay, so yeah, secure additional funding for affordable housing programs.
Would that be more of a goal that you're talking about? Should we replace secure additional funding for affordable housing programs instead of,
Aren't the two, the blue and the black, the same?
they're not, because Councilmember Younger mentioned home ownership,
They both say affordable housing.
right?
Different animal. So this one, I have a much higher priority. If you keep that going, I have much more support if it's more broad than weatherization, which we've done a tremendous amount on weatherization and rental
Oh, yeah.
assistance.
So I think now we're looking between similar wording, identify funding for community organizations to develop more affordable housing and secure additional funding for affordable housing programs. So
Yes,
want-
I would hope that that would be in partnership. I just want to bring us back to what Director Spencer always reminds us, and that is we don't build affordable housing. We, provide money to community-based organizations or others in our community to do that. So I think, combining those in some way would be fine. But I don't know that the city needs to, I think we're doing a good job of securing as much federal funding as we possibly can and state funding for this, but I might be wrong about that. Just a thought, it could be
I feel like the
combined.
black wording is more specific than the blue wording, but they mean the same thing. So
And it's more
I
inclusive.
propose striking the blue wording of secure additional funding because we already have it under community organizations for partnership, but speak up if you want to keep it on and rank it.
I would like to keep it on and rank it.
Okay.
Because it is more inclusive than the black wording.
Okay. Let's rank it real quick. And then when we get to next study session, we can combine or treat.
10.
Perfect. All right.
Can I suggest a change that might resolve this? Identify funding with community organizations?
Let's
No.
let's
Okay, carry
postpone
on,
the
carry
tweaking
on.
and just, we'll just keep
Okay.
moving. All
So
right.
secure.
So secure additional funding for affordable housing programs. I'm gonna give that a 9, or I'm gonna give it an 8, same as I give the other item. We'll shake it out next study session. 8. Michael? 7. Eric?
I'm gonna go low because of my previous stated point, so I'm gonna go 5,
Correct, makes sense. Okay.
because it's not in collaboration.
Explore feasibility of implementing findings of March 2020 Affordable Housing Recommendations Report. So again, this one was wording from last year. That will go down to that'll get under difficulty. I'm gonna give this a 8, fairly high priority of, seems like it'd be good to get an update on this report and what we can do.
I'll go with an 8.
I'm also on team 8.
8.
8.
Team 8.
8.
So-
Michael, yeah.
So I would tend to score this low
I don't-
because I would assume, the administration has this report and is working on it. Like, so it seems weird to prioritize everything that's happened. Like, we talked about this a little bit. That,
Sure.
so I tend to think, weatherization, man, that's going great. We're always looking for stuff. So I guess I'm looking for things that really stand out.
So I'd say we had this on our list from last year.
Yep.
My take is if it's in the works and it's low difficulty, keep it on our list. We're keeping our eye on it. And if it gets done, we can check it off. Oh, IT, yeah, sorry, IT. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Andrea. Well,
Can you hear me? I'm just doing mic check real quick.
yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay, I was just gonna say, there's a lot of stuff in the 2020 Affordable Housing Recommendations Report that you've already done, and we will integrate in the comp plan update And as part of all the stuff that we're having to do under the new House Bill 1220, which I think Councilmember Goodnow heard a lot yesterday from the state, that we're doing work through KRCC. So there's stuff that we're doing. So I'm not sure that you need to call it out specifically from this report as its own goal, because there's so many other initiatives that you're doing, and it's real hard to kind of pick that out as one particular goal.
Fair enough. Let's postpone kind of those comments to next session, where we can just strike things and tweak language. So, but much appreciated, Director. All right, 2 more numbers. Let's keep moving. We'll get a draft and iterate after that.
So my comment on this is, before we can give you a number, this was right when COVID started. I don't recall us having a study session. We could have, kind of in a fog during that period. Did we actually sit down and digest this thing page by page and have a study session? Or was this just the administration saying, this is part of the toolkit, here's something we can pass? If we didn't, then I suggest it's very important. It is so frustrating to see money spent on these darn studies, not actually looking at them and thoroughly pulling them apart and saying, okay, because we set policy. It's not the administration saying, hey, we like this, and that's great. I think Andrea does a great job. I'm not going down that
I
road.
appreciate it, but let's keep
But
on the ranking. Yeah.
Fine, 10.
So 10, perfect. All right. Agreed. Michael,
Which one are we on?
March 2020 affordable housing.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, 7.
7. Okay, sounds good. Identify new partnerships and programs for greatest impact.
Strike it.
I'm fine striking this one because I think it's covered by the other ones we've ranked. What do
But
folks
it's not a
think?
very direct, measurable goal.
Okay, seeing no objection, I'll strike that one for consideration. And that brings us to equity and government. We're actually the number we've done, we're almost halfway.
8.
Equity and government, maximize affordability. Well, actually, let's start with the black ones again. So let's go bottom to top. Equity and government, hire a consultant to help define roles and responsibilities of the DEI position. We talked about this a bit during the retreat in a deep dive.
9.
9.
Okay. 9. So again, specifically hiring a consultant to help define roles and responsibilities.
9,
Yeah.
9,
Of course, you are a council member.
team 9,
Nine
team
for
9.
Denise, Michael. 9. Eric.
10.
10. All right.
11.
10 as well. All right. I did a 10. I'm not even sure. We had pretty clear consensus on this, but drafting an ordinance to create a permanent race equity commission.
10.
We had a
10.
10. I'm gonna say 10. That's-
10.
No can of worms. Give me a number. I'm saying 10 because I heard from council. Okay, perfect.
10.
I'm gonna propose striking the define the functions, power and duties of the DI position if we just
Hire a
highly
consultant
ranked
to
the
do
bottom
that.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Or,
we're going to hire a consultant to define what the DEI position is without having input from council, which is one of our council
It literally
powers.
says hire a consultant to define.
Oh, to help define. One of our powers
but
on
help.
council is to define new hires. So I want to honor the feedback of REACT, which is
Fair enough.
that,
so I'm gonna propose,
okay.
to help, yeah, let me say to help. Yes. 'Cause that
Consultant
is
to
that
help
situation.
define.
Perfect. All right, so I'll do that and let me work with you since this is just a focusing tool. We don't have to,
Okay, I see what you
Um,
did.
Let me work with you. So I'll say to help council define roles and responsibilities. And I'm gonna strike that other one because it's redundant. But we can keep tweaking the language on this, especially.
Should we revote
finalize
since
it.
we changed the words? Okay.
No,
great.
it's clear that's council.
Eric gives
council had
it an
clear direction
11.
there. So, yeah, these ones are kind of, this is redundant with what we discussed at the retreat. The one from last year, maximize affordability by using equity and racial justice lens. If we want to keep that language in there.
That's a huh? I don't know what that means.
It is
Strike
a
that.
little more nebulous, but maybe. That was the exact wording in last year's published goals and priorities.
I can't remember
I-
when we drafted the council goals and priorities, what the discussion was around that.
Yeah, I'm putting that one on Michael.
the blue ones were the new one.
No, blue was old.
The
Blue was last year.
Can we just move to strike?
Oh, I
Let's
think that's it.
Strike it.
I think it might have been under something like affordable housing. or
Right.
something.
It was under something else.
And I might have,
Yeah.
okay.
because
So I'm cool with striking it
Yeah.
if we're working on something different right now. And I feel like a DEI. That's
Okay.
better, yeah.
we're
All right,
zero.
we'll strike that and we can always, if we're missing something later on, we can add it in. All right, 2 more categories. Environmental stewardship. Again, let's start bottom to the top. Create a plan for establishing Sylvan Park, not Slytherin Park, Sylvan Park and the YMCA area.
Who put that one in?
Joke at my own typo. Bad autocorrect. Sylvan.
Little giggle on the screen.
Oh, in the name of equity and access and all of that good stuff. I know there's not a, there's probably
Denise, I'm
probably
guessing
not
you're
a
10 on this
chance.
one.
Can you not hear me?
Do I hear a 10 from you, Denise?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
knowing that it may not survive.
Sure. Well, part of the process.
4,
Give it a 7.
I'm gonna say 7 as well.
We have parks that have been undeveloped for 20, 30, 40 years since. So I'm sorry, Denise, we got to take care of what we have. 1.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, 1, I'll go with 1. I was gonna say 0, but I love Denise. So kind of on that, like, we've got like huge plans for Pendergast and things like that. We've got.
Oh, what district is that in?
Oh, it is about. No, it's not. Is it? No, it's
No.
not. It's in.
Okay.
No, it's not.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we
Moving
got our
on.
numbers, but point taken, it's one specific part of the city. Civic Sparks Fellow, let's pause on this one. Denise, do you want to explain what this is?
Oh, gosh, it's a program through the federal government. Boy, I'm not even gonna remember the. Tom Nucky, can you help me out with this? Tom and I have talked about this. It's through the feds. It's like a fellowship, Job Corps, thing like that. Only this is a university fellowship where the city would pay like, I don't know, $15,000 or something like that. But they'd have this graduate student be able to work full time for 9 months or whatever to help with something like this. So there was support and management for it. It's pretty specific. I know that. I just think it would give us a good step into more formalizing environmental stewardship. This is a real focus on sustainability. So anyway, that's why I included it.
Any quick questions on that or Anna?
He loves it.
I believe Denise, this would actually give us, give the city back some action items to regarding sustainability.
Yeah,
Environmental.
Oh.
I'm not clear with what you're asking, with what you're clarifying.
Tom looks like he's ready to answer this, so.
I'm so sorry about the mic. I know I got people listening, but we're getting late in the night.
Sorry about that. I remember the conversation with Denise, but I can't remember any specifics, but I've got an email. I'll see if I can find it. But
Okay.
yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Clearly,
give
this
it
is a low.
I
priority.
think,
Right, so we're gonna go with
Yeah.
the
I'm gonna give it a 9 personally because I thought this was
I described it a lot better when I
sustainability
proposed
committee,
it.
but I thought this was a way to discuss sustainability in a bite-sized work package of this is one action we could take to get feedback on our sustainable practices, but we can revisit it with more information and add or subtract later. So let's just do some quick numbers and we'll
I'm
get more
giving it a
information.
0 because I can't understand either noun phrase.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Eric Quinn.
I'll give a 4.
I'll be a little more fair. I'm
Mm.
going to abstain because I don't understand the
Okay,
question.
sounds good. All right, pretty low priority, Michael Quinn.
4.
I'm with noun phrase.
Okay, let's go. Denise.
Hey, I don't take things personally, and it was just a long time ago that I sent y'all the email, but you've all gotten information on it. Thought that
Yeah.
Anna would be a
bring it up
real
next session.
proponent,
For sure.
but yeah, I'm totally okay with taking it off. I'll give it a 4.
Okay, perfect. Jennifer, did I get a number for you?
That was the first number I gave, which was a
2, thank you. Put that down. Okay. Secure dedicated sustainable funding for parks capital improvement projects and expansion. This was from last year.
Six.
Parks Director Elevato opined, more money for parks.
10.
Eight.
I don't know.
10,
I
8.
mean,
Okay, so you're probably getting mad at me for having all these comments, but
never.
gosh darn it, I tried my darnest to do this last year during budget and I got totally shot down. So I'm like, I'm not going there again. I've been doing this for years and I was this close and really? So whatever.
I'm hearing a 10. This is important to you. I'm gonna shake out. Michael?
10.
10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 10.
I'm gonna give it a 9 personally, because I think long run we need more.
Okay, 10.
Okay. All right, good.
I am giving it a low number because Director Elevato, during budget said
Wow.
that he did not have maintenance people for the parks that
Hey,
we
that
already
can go-
had.
that can go
So
under
4,
difficulty, but okay.
4.
All right. Support the planning and development of a trail system through Bremerton.
11.
All right. Captain
2.
10, 2,
9.
9. Michael, Eric, Denise.
I'll do an 8.
8.
And although nobody asked, my vote on the last one would have been 9.
Oh, I'm so
Oh.
sorry. I must have.
No,
okay, I
out
wrote
of sight, out of
I'm
mind.
sorry. Changing it back, changing that to 9. Okay.
10 on the trails.
And the trails. I'm gonna say 8.
It's pretty easy to do.
8. I didn't tell you I get more numbers to you. I get a roll of 20 die. Yeah.
Oh, the 20D.
Right. Okay. Few more. We're almost there. Develop policies that encourage
10.
environmental stewardship.
9.
And from on it, 9, Jennifer.
9.
It's a little nebulous to me, but I think we can work on the language. I'm gonna give it an 8.
7.
7.
I'm
clearly.
gonna give it a 5 because I don't really understand.
Fair enough.
Yeah, 5.
Okay. Pursue additional funding to address noxious weeds
10.
last year. You're in a 10.
The only noxious weeds that we have are the Iris acoris that grow along the banks of Kitsap Lake that are removed by both mechanical harvesting and chemical harvesting. What other noxious weeds present a problem to the city of Bremerton? I'm truly asking. Scottsbrown? Where?
In the ground?
Yes, but
All right.
What
where
about-
in the ground?
Let's keep moving.
So,
What should it be?
no, let's vote to strike this one. We have so many goals that this is really literally getting down into the weeds.
Yeah.
And,
He did not.
I give that a 10.
Seriously, I think that would come under policies that encourage environmental stewardship. And this is actually something I
get
If we're
trained,
saying low priority
got
anyway,
paid
we
to
can just
do.
strike
So
it now.
I know how to
Shake out under
strike
the
it.
low priority. Okay. Perfect. The weeds are legal. Continue support of Kitsap Lake Water Quality Program.
10.
8.
I'd like to see this get a little more specific action, but we can work on that
Continue.
wording later.
10. No, it has to be councilmatic. Thank you, 10.
I'll say 9. Michael and Denise,
I'll do a 9.
9.
This is just one of those. that,
even
like,
though you don't understand it.
If everything we're gonna.
No, I
continue to do
understand this. It's in District 7.
are rules, That's ridiculous. Like, pay bills on time.
Do your laundry.
Great.
Staffing, we're at staffing now, right?
I need your.
I'm gonna give
Oh,
it a
sorry.
0 for
I
the
gave it a
nouns
10.
again.
Everything else is gonna be a 10 for the rest of the night, just kidding.
Zero, not good. Okay, Michael, you have a number, Michael, or was it
Yeah,
zero?
zero.
Zero, okay.
Oh,
All right, last two, I just grouped these under staffing because there weren't any other good, really good categories. So make the auditor a full-time position. We've kind of talked about this off and on here. I don't know if you want to give quick.
So really quickly, is it possible to be in line with the charter, Attorney Fennel, for us to have a 3/4 auditor and then to have additional support staff for that auditor that still would be a full-time position, or does it have to come under some other heading?
Yeah, I guess can the auditor have their own staff?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. It's tricky because the audit committee is an unusual animal to begin with. And having, it's already a little strange to have a city employee, the city auditor, report to what could essentially be citizen volunteers because of the committee. And I certainly would, it's not in the charter for them to have staff, and adding to something that's not in the charter. I just don't think so.
Okay,
But you can't have a 3/4 person. I just don't know that you can add, because we've had a full-time, Eric would know the history of that more than me off the top of his head probably, but we've had various types of
Quarter time to full time over
order.
the years.
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, did you have a quick thought?
Okay, yeah, so I've worked with all three. One of them, the middle one, I actually hired my other agency, hired away from the city of Bremerton. In my opinion, this is not the question to ask. The question to ask is, should we have a charter amendment to actually fix this position instead of year after year saying the charter screwed up? And we could write this to be full-time and actually have it be organizationally more useful for the citizens of Bremerton. So if we don't have to reword it tonight, but if we could reword it somewhere in that vein, I'd give it a 10. Let's fix this darn
Something
thing
up-
because it has been wrong for so many years on the whole reporting structure. It's just been bad.
Gotcha. So update ordinance regarding the city auditor.
Update charter.
Update charter, thank you, charter. Thank you.
Charter.
Update,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Ooh, charter update.
There's a lot of other things that need to be updated with the charter as well. Is there any way that we
No,
can-
you gotta be careful because you're gonna vote on.
Yeah, I
you
just
have
want to
be
get
real
real
careful. If you want something to pass, you do one thing at a time. Otherwise, it's gonna
Oh.
go down in
Like
flames.
Yeah. Okay, Solana, you brought this one forward originally.
10.
Okay, so up specifically for update charter regarding auditor. So
Wait,
we will-
Are we doing
or
update
do you wanna
charter?
do- We can do them separately.
Update charter
Make
regarding
auditor
auditor.
full-time, 10.
Okay, let's rank auditor full-time and then rank the charter and we'll shake it out later. Okay, so auditor full-time position. Auditor
5.
says 10, 5 Quinn,
4.
4. Michael,
0.
0. Denise, Jennifer,
2.
2,
8.
8. I'm gonna say 9 personally. Okay, and then now separately, update the charter regarding the city auditor. Get better language, but you got the idea.
Okay.
10 Michael, Eric,
10.
and Quinn.
8.
I'm gonna give it also a 9.
8.5.
Yeah. Didn't charter regarding the auditor.
8.
Okay,
8.
Denise. 8. Thank you. Last
I think that
one,
one,
suggested,
8.5.
identify opportunities to create and hire staff for jobs currently performed by contractors.
10.
3.
2.
Yeah, if it's last item, almost, yeah.
So, Director Nucky has said many times that in-house staff can accomplish a job for 1/3 of the cost of the contractors. This isn't going to be true for every single job. We can't do everything in-house. But Finance Director Mike Riley has said this is a very conservative estimate. It's probably more like 4 to 5 times. That's the reason for this line item.
I just think that there are sometimes things that consultants, there's expertise, equipment, whatever. So I think it's really easy to say that. I would love to see something from Mike Riley, actually, determining that, laying that out.
I'm gonna give it a 6 personally. I've got a 10, 3, 2, 6, Michael, 5.
If I could just say too,
Sure.
because the two sides are to this are like people looking at us and saying, why are you growing your staff so huge? And then the other piece is, why are you taking away jobs that are helping our general economy by hiring outside? So, it's complicated,
Yeah.
but.
Yep.
2 more numbers. Quinn, did I get a number? Oh, you said 3. Thank you. Denise,
4. I didn't say
Okay.
4, but I might have.
is in your head.
5.
5. All right, perfect. I will work, not adjourning yet. I'll just say I'll work with administration, get another draft. Next study session, we'll have a complete draft to look at, and we can make all the changes we still want to that. Other general council business, obviously very quick at this point. Anna?
Thank you, Council President Coughlin, for instituting breaks.
No problem. Thank you all for humoring my number process. I think it'll be good in the end. And if it isn't, then we'll do something, whoever's president next year can do something different. All right, we'll adjourn. Reminder that the city council meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 at 5:30 PM in the first floor meeting chambers with a remote option, which we have for all meetings going forward. With that, meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.